Wow, Neil Armstrong. Hey, wait a minute. You're supposed to be on the moon. I just saw it on TV.
Oh, there's a tape delay, and with all solar winds.
Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method. In our field, it's by the seat of your pants. It's leaps of logic. It's guesswork.
You don't see the curvature of the Earth. That stuff is flat.
GLOBEBUSTERS taking over. Bye bye moon man and rover. NASA so mediocre. Sorry, but your ball is dead. But your ball is GLOBEBUSTERs taking over. Gotta ride this roller coaster, but the truth is getting closer. Sorry, but your ball is dead. But your ball is. Get the shovel for the space hubble, piecing up the puzzle. Need to burst your bubble. Evil gonna crumble, yeah. Sit down, be humble. Got the ball, you better fumble. You get mad cause at this fight I'm about your uncle.
And then they call me the liar. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable the pathetic techniques that they have to use to prove their heliocentric model.
Bob shut the president, Jeran got the evidence. Arrow slaying Jesuits and Zack is evident. That the earth electric and it's resonant. Your residence is heavens and I hope to settle in like some sediment. If we so wrong, why they lying to discredit it? That's not too intelligent. That's a guy, not an in court, but we ain't really in the settlement. It's time to awaken from the pseudoscience sedatives.
GLOBEBUSTERs taking over. Bye bye moon man and rover. NASA so mediocre. Sorry, but your ball is dead. But your ball is GLOBEBUSTERs taking over. Gotta ride this roller coaster, but the truth is getting closer. Sorry, but your ball is dead. But your ball is.
Inner World Productions.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
Welcome, everybody, to GLOBEBUSTERS. It is time to FTGE, which is Fight the Globe Earth. And that's what we're here to do, because it is a deception and a lie. And so why continue to let it be told? I'm your host, Jeran from Jeranism, and we've got Bob is not feeling well today. So, Bob, get better. And we hope to have you back soon. But we do have me, which is twice as good. So actually it's twice as good for the fans. And we've got Iru Landucci in the house. Iru, joining me. How are you?
Hello, Jeran. How you doing, guys? Pleasure to be here.
And then if people could just make sure you
stop talking.
Yes, make sure you let me know that the sound sounds good. Bongos.
Your sound is good.
Yeah, I want to know from the chat just to make sure that there was no echo and you heard Iru. And that would be really chat. Great if that's the truth.
Everything sounds good on YouTube.
Beautiful. Wow. I'm shocked. All right. And we've got Austin Whitsitt.
Everybody's shocked.
Everybody's shocked. Austin, what's up?
What up, brother?
Another day, another 50 cents. And
wow, dude, you're balling.
You have no idea. We do this all for money. That's the only reason we're here.
Yeah.
We're here this morning. And we've also got Zachary Zabala. Zach, how's it going?
Hey, gentlemen. Hope you all are having a nice afternoon. Is it afternoon there? Yeah, it's just turning noon for you, isn't it, out there on the West Coast?
I will give you afternoon. It's 12:07. It is allowed.
Did you know saying good afternoon used to be like a slight, according to, I don't know, it's in some movie or some video I just saw. Like saying good afternoon to people was like flicking them off and giving them the bird back in the day, supposedly.
Man, I heard something weird this week too. I don't know if it's true. Well, I found out what swag means this week, which I never knew what that means before. But that was kind of interesting. Shit we all get. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Swag. I didn't know that. Anyway, learn something new every day. And then how about sir? Do you know what sir used to be? Or do you know where it came from? Because something we call people, right? Hey, sir, excuse me, sir. What do you think? Have you ever heard the origins of the word sir?
No.
No. But I gotta say, with the swag, I heard it used to be like people would sag their pants in prison and stuff, and they would say that they had swag because it means secretly we are gay.
Wow. All right. Well, see, and now I don't know where I heard, because I heard somebody say it meant sire, but I thought I heard it meant slave in something. Slavery. Nobody's ever heard that?
That's brutal though, because I say sir all the time.
No.
I'm calling everyone a slave.
There's a comedian that's so hilarious. It's talking about the word sir, and he's like, whenever we use that, it means you've definitely made a mistake. You've definitely done something wrong. Like, sir, step away from there, sir.
You never say sir to somebody when you're not trying to correct them.
No, unless they've made a mistake, right? They've done something terribly wrong.
I literally do though. I'm like, yes, sir, all the time. I'm like, all right, what's up, sir? I don't know.
Same way.
It's going to really cripple my ability
in
to
Spanish
speak.
in Spanish is señor.
Señor.
And yeah, it has some root link with the way that somebody is looking at you. We talk about the seño or seña, which is like a sign, and the way that you put your eyebrow, like in the gangster fashion, things like that. But I didn't know exactly the actual etymology in English or the story behind the word.
Yeah, so I guess I'm reading now. Maybe it's not true. I did hear it in some video, but it says, does it mean slave? I remain. And I guess the claim was that the British used to mentally enslave the Indians. And so they had the title Sir, which means slave I remain. But I don't know. This article is like who knows?
Mentally and physically.
I gotta say. So like all these pictures, man, I can never look at pictures now. Mind Unveiled, which I don't agree with everything the dude says, of course, but
yeah, I know.
He has a video he just released where he covers old time photos. And bro, it's pretty epic. Like what we call Photoshop has existed since the early 1800s.
I saw that with like the guys with heads off and stuff.
Yeah. And then they did this thing called spirit photography where they would supposedly get pictures of your family ancestry spirits around you and all this crazy stuff. But then he started looking at pictures in the Library of Congress of old cities, and they're all like pasted. There are buildings pasted. They're all painted over. People are painted in. Now, I'm not making any claims as to what that means, but it's interesting because what? One of the talking points for the Globers is like, well, this picture's fake. We showed it as Photoshop, blah, blah, of the moon. They're like, Photoshop didn't exist then.
Right?
Yeah, dude, it existed in 1800, my guy. So,
I made a presentation about that, man.
You did make one?
Well, the actual Mount Meru presentation that I did was based on the way that the humans paint photorealistic since the resonance.
Yeah, but what this guy was showing is that like you could even take pictures back in the 1800s and then just basically cut them out and then put them on another picture.
Yeah.
Right, and take a picture of that.
The first stereoscopic 3D photograph is from the 80s.
Now look, I know there's like this whole thing going on, right? Where like the guy that originally really put out Ewar, whatever his name is, putting out all this stuff, he's critiquing it now, and I get it, blah blah.
Right.
I'm not saying that when people say every picture is all fake and they lied about the cities. What I'm saying is it's objective that the videos are that the pictures are altered, right? So it's like you can say whatever you want to, but you can literally prove that the pictures are altered. And it's interesting at the least. Now, I don't think that they always had some, crazy conspiracy where they're like hiding stuff, or it was really empty cities after a reset and then they painted people in. I'm just saying that they were objectively doing. In fact, you couldn't have a photo back then if it wasn't faked. Right? Like that's how they made the photos. And there's all kinds of literature about it. And you start to look into it. You're like, dang, look, there's there's just like from the knees down. There's like 7 people with just the knees down, their top of their bodies cut off. And these are pictures in the Library of Congress. You see them hiding transformer boxes on the side of the buildings and stuff. And it's like, sure, you could say, well, they're just touching up the picture. That's the best they could do, whatever. But it's just interesting. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I've heard they did, if you Google when did Photoshop get invented, it's like 1987, I think. No. It's because, my answer's always been, well, they had life-size models of these planets and the Earth and stuff like that, right? So they were just taking pictures of that. But
not life-size.
Well, you know what I'm saying,
yes.
like bigger than human.
Yes.
And definitely not life size. So then they just pasted them on there. So I just think it's funny.
It is funny, and I just don't know why people. History is the hardest thing to grab onto and be like, I'm going to stand behind this. This definitely happened. This definitely happened. You just don't know. You really don't. And we can take guesses and we can look at the connections, and there is some, and there's some things that we can say, oh, this probably definitely occurred. But as far as standing behind it, I just can't get behind anything. Like Stonehenge. I mean, why would I get behind that if the whole thing was, we don't know how these stones got on top of here. We don't know how they did that. And then we literally have pictures of videos of them with cranes putting them up there. Now, of course, they say, "Oh, we were doing it after the fact." Well, sure, you can say that, but I mean, it just kind of takes the lore away. I would give it no credence now.
Yeah, the problem, there is an excellent meme that says, if the news are fake, imagine the history. And that condenses a really powerful message, because of course, if we are leading in our days with a lot of fake news and how they copy and paste other from different companies and things like that, imagine the history. That's the point there. And if you go back to Fomenko topic, which is really interesting, you can see, okay, from 500, at least 500 years back in time is the most accurate thing that you can start, study. Beyond that, it's completely falsified story.
Yeah, I think he puts the oldest book at like 1450, something like that. Which is crazy.
Hey, the Junicorn makes a good point. How do you know they're not life size? They could be bigger than the actual quote unquote planet.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, heliocentric life size. Yes.
Yeah. Which is all known.
Of course, nothing could be.
Dude, what's funny is, let me go and read the super chat up.
Yeah.
DFE.
Oh, no.
Debunk Flat Earth. $5 super chat. Thank you so much for your support, brother.
Thank you.
All right. Let's hear the excuses for Artemis. I confirmed 2 of the images with Geos and Meteosat. Astronomy Live captured Orion after one full orbit. It came back around. Honestly, DFE, this is what I'll say to you, okay? I want you to believe in that. All right, my brother?
We want you to have that belief.
Did you see any of the footage that people got from a distance? It looks like the arc isn't going as high as it used to now. It looked way less, like this St. Louis arc. It's a nice arc. This was a lot flatter, it looked to me.
Well, this is why we have to keep doing what we're doing, because obviously in 2024, it does look like they're going to roll out the moon landing hoax. And, who knows? I'm on the fence, right? But it's important, I think. It's important that we really try to make sure people have some foundation, because when you look at the video they post on Twitter that you sent me, Jeran, and then Dave posts another one, it's like you can see why someone that knows nothing about it would be like, wow, that's crazy. Because they don't know. There's no standard of comparison to be like what it should look like, right? No one knows what it should look like. So it's like they don't know how to tell that it's nonsense. Now, when we look at it, we're like, this looks ridiculous. You know what I mean? But they don't know. So
my goodness. I look at this screen. I thought he caught it coming back around the second time. Look what he's got. Look at this thing he's got here.
Oh, that's definitely proving it's out there by the moon that you can walk on.
Yeah, look at that. It's right there. See it?
Wow, dude.
I'll show everybody. Sorry, I wasn't showing the audience. No, I mean, Brian, I don't know. To me, it seems like you've lost the point here. I don't think you're going to ever be able to see the truth now that you've gotten on team. Let's just make fun of flat earthers for anything. Like it doesn't even have to make sense. You have a video out where you say Dave Weiss's app proves Antarctica exists. So you obviously have no idea that there's nobody, not one of us claims it doesn't. So then what are you doing? What are you making that video for?
Dude, Jeran, so me and Kai were talking. So Kai was like, I guess someone in the chat, because DFE, he was frantically trying to help FTFE before my debate or whatever. They thought they had me cornered and all this stuff. And him and Looney Tunes did a review of it. And Kai was like, you got to go check it out. I'm like, nah, I don't watch that stuff. It's low vibration. She's like, just trust me, you got to go watch it. So you can kind of know what they're saying. I'm like, okay, whatever. And over there, and me and her are talking, dude, we understand. All those people that follow their channels and they really do make fun of us and call us stupid and say we lie and stuff? they believe that, bro. Kari and I had this epiphany that when you watch it, they speak with so much conviction.
I know
that it's like convincing. It's just like Conspiracy Cast when I just was intellectually eviscerating him the other night. It's like, but he speaks with so much conviction, and he has his talking points no matter what, that someone can get lured into the spell.
Yeah,
and
he's
that's
not
what
even, he was
him
actually repeating the exact same thing. He was like saying, "You guys can't put that lens there. You can't put that lens there. Move it wherever you want." After Mr. Sensible is just giving his example of putting a lens there and moving it exactly where he wants, and he couldn't even see that he was doing it.
Dude, everything that they said was it's funny, but like to do a debate breakdown of that would take me 8 hours, right?
Right.
But what's funny is, so I'm trying to decide, do I every single thing that Bryant, this is a former professor in physics, and McLooney Tunes, an engineer, that are obsessed with flat Earth, every single thing they said was wrong. Literally every single thing. And then they were covering Fight the Tight Shirt debate, and then they just stopped watching it. They didn't finish it because it was getting so bad. Yeah, so it's like, I don't know. Do I just have Brian on and see if he's going to stick with that, or do I expose it? Normally, I would say we don't, but me and Kai were talking. I do, unfortunately, I feel it's my role in a way that I do have to address them because that is the best they have. They don't have, like, Neil deGrasse Tyson won't be covering my debate, right? He could never.
No.
So it's like, yeah, unfortunately, I do have to expose these people because they're casting a spell with like this convincing narrative. And if what they were saying is true, then I would be an idiot and I would be lying and all this stuff, right? And they say it so convincingly that it's like, I mean, I know that McToon is actually honestly or dishonestly doing it, and then this other guy believes it. But anyway, that's my, like, long story short, it's like they are literally wrong about everything, and I just don't think he gets it. He just doesn't get it. So
I think in time it exposes itself. I think it shows itself to those who are really paying attention, which is really all I care about, right? I used to think that, like, oh, I can convince these Globers or that they'll, but now I realize that no, the truth is only for those looking for it, only for those who are actually open to it and seeking it, and not those that are, dead set on preventing any growth or preventing anything beyond just what they've been taught, because it, breaks their soul basically to think that anything else could be different. So I do think, and I don't know if people listening probably didn't listen to your show last night, so they don't know the whole idea of this debate that you're thinking of doing. Did you make a decision up yet? Because in my opinion, what about this? Do you think it's okay if you told them they're not allowed to cut it up at all? So say you took because that's my only thing that I would think that they would do, is have the debate, then Professor Dave would cut pieces of it and put it up on his channel. It would get 10 million views, 7 million views, and it would be all just cut up. So,
but how many people of those 10 million views would want to go see the whole debate?
It's a good call. So, but I think to prevent that, you could just tell them, hey, these 5 Globe channels, whatever the top 5 channels are not allowed to show this unless it's in full. Just leave it at that.
So yeah, so one thing's for sure. If I take it, which for those who don't know or didn't see, it's like dude's trying to give me $5,000 up front to debate Professor Dave on Fight the Tight Shirt, and I can stream it simultaneously on my channel. He'll be the mod. And then like another $5,000 in limbo, where if he doesn't mod fairly, then he'll give me the other $5,000. Now, I'll obviously never see the second half, but apparently he's saying he'll send the first half up front and blah, blah, blah. And I'm considering like turning it down, even though I only do this for money, And so that's like the backstory. But so to answer your question, I was thinking like you would have to make a contract. They would literally have to sign a contract for me to do any of this. This is how dishonest of people. There is no like, take you for your word, my guy. This is like, you gave him $60 to mow your lawn. You went back outside and nothing happened. Like this is not like a shake the hand. And so I don't know, maybe, but I'm with what you're saying, who knows, right? Because if that said he can't chop it up and he gets destroyed, which obviously he will. Obviously he will be interrupting. Obviously Bryant won't stop him from interrupting, right? So obviously I should actually get the full $10,000. We already know this. I'm the actual time traveler, not conspiracy guy. So when we look at that, it's like, well, if he doesn't post on his video at all, is that a good or bad thing? Because if it gets 10 million views, even if it's chopped up, they may want to go watch the whole thing, and then they're going to definitely see that I destroyed him. So that's 10 million views that get led to find my channel, find the debate, blah, blah, blah. Or you tell them they can't chop it up, and it's so bad he won't even post it, and then it's just on Fight the Tight Shirts channel, right, where not as many views. Because I don't know. I would have to sit down and like try to write
it won't be
contract
live. It won't be live on Dave's channel. No way.
No, it would be live on Fight the Tight Shirts in my channel.
Okay.
Yeah, so of course, right? Because Dave's not going to post it if he gets destroyed.
That gives him the option then of even posting it at all.
Correct, and the only way he would is to be able to chop it up, like you're saying. And I think, we want him to post it, right? Like in my opinion, like I need him to post it for it to really be worth why I'm doing it.
Yeah,
So-
actually, now you think about it, maybe it chopped up isn't a bad idea. Let him do it.
Yeah, because if someone just sees a chopped up debate and then they're like, "Oh, haha, he got killed," and don't care to look into it, then it's like, well, those are the kind of people that would never wake up to flat Earth
Anyway, right? Screw them.
Yeah.
Okay, I totally agree. Yeah, maybe that's just better. And then let them chop it up if they want. But I say you got to do it. I mean, we can look at the during this tonight. We'll look at your debate with Fight the Fat Shirt, because I just thought it needs to be watched by any flat earther. Any flat earther that is ever going to have a conversation about this and not just sit and watch videos all day. And even if that's all you're going to do, but you have to watch this debate because there's so many things exposed in there, and just seeing how Austin handles it, very impressive. If anybody hasn't seen that yet, it's he gets obliterated. And same thing with the other debate you did. The one, what was it, the day before that?
Yeah,
With Conspiracy Cats and Mr. Sensible, where they just made, I mean, they look so bad, but you're right. The sad thing is that anybody watching them thinks, for whatever reason, that because that's all they tell them, right? We're lying, we're doing this, we're grifting. And it's like, oh yeah, I mean, that's what their audience believes, and it's because they just, I think it's easy to be dumb. It's easy to be. You don't have to think at all. You just have to say, yeah, flat earthers are dumb. You got to lie to Flurf. Interesting. Thanks, Bob. And that's all you got to do. And here's Brian again. I will send the first half. We can put the other 5,000 in escrow. We can sign a contract. I don't think he'll agree to not being able to cut it up. I wonder why.
I just responded. I keep the first half no matter what. That's the only way I'm even considering it. And I still may not. Like, I'm not going to make my decision based on money. Like, anyone that knows me in real life, they know that I'm like so stubborn that I'll do this to a very detrimental extent. You know, like you could offer me $100,000, but I wouldn't do it if I. So it's like, yeah, it maybe factors in. I do have a baby on the way, right? But like,
yeah.
We'll see. Like, it would have to be $5,000, and then there'd have to be a contract. As in, if Professor Dave continually interrupts the middle of my sentences and you don't step in and be a moderator, then I get the other 5, and you can sign your name on it. And let's make it 20 or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, we'll have to. It's not going to be the way they're trying to finesse me, that's for sure. But we'll talk about it. I'm getting a lot of mixed reviews or mixed responses from the flat earthers, right? Because I like to kind of try, like, what do you guys think? Now, obviously, there are flat earthers like turn the money down and find a way to do it for free somewhere. And of course, they would say that, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, people are failing to realize
because there's still that potential in person idea, and that would be, I think it'd be worth me making no money and expose them in person. But
I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah, probably not. So,
and people just need to know that Fight the Fat Shirt is that he would make a ton of money off this. So that's what you have to remember. So if they're willing to at least give some of that to Austin, why not? Why wouldn't Austin?
Oh, that will have to be in the contract, right? So this is him saying, because he wants to see it, he's going to have to pay $5,000 to see it. That's how I'm looking at it, right? You have to pay $5,000 to see it. And we all know I'm not going to get the other $5,000. But maybe I would. But then secondly, you have to, in the contract, he needs to agree that I get a percentage of the amount that FTFE makes from YouTube. And it should almost be like even what Professor Dave makes. Because it's like, dude, if they give me $5,000 but make $50,000, you know, I mean, I don't know. You know, they don't have content without us, so they should have to pay us.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'll go do some electrostatic experiments.
And Brian, I have to say, because Brian, you also made a video where you showed my experiment, you call it, that we did out at the canal. And I still find it funny that if the flat earthers do an experiment, you guys ask us, what's the temperature gradient? What's the temperature of the water? What's the refraction? Everything. You guys need to know every fact that there is to know, every measurement that can possibly be had. But in a movie, a literal movie that has been made as a hit piece, they put a scene at the end of the movie where I simply say the words interesting. That's it. You see a light, I say interesting, and you guys call that evidence. So how is that not clear to you of what the globe Earth has become? That anything in the world that you can possibly imagine is evidence of the globe. And no matter what happens that's evidence of flat Earth, it's not evidence, it's just globe evidence. It's gotten so bad now that the guy, I Can Science That, we were talking to him about mirror observations, and he admitted, he said, no matter what distance it was away, that if he saw a mirror flash, it would just mean that the light is bending around the curvature of the Earth. So now your guys' evidence is no matter how far we see, it doesn't matter if I look through a telescope and see my own ass, you're just going to say, oh, that just proves that the light bends all the way around, that the light's coming around, you know, that we're able to see around balls. So there is literally nothing that could ever convince you that the Earth is flat because you've already made your choice. You've already made your decision that every bit of evidence is globe evidence.
With that, Jeran, like I've corrected him 3 times so far because he keeps saying that everywhere. That it was closer to the flat Earth prediction than the globe prediction.
Right.
So stop saying it. You know what I'm saying? Like an honest person's not going to say it anymore.
But this is
like
why you said, yeah, exactly. But this is why you said their viewers just believe what they say. So they can just get on there. They're so desperate for globe evidence that they get on there and say, oh, Jeran proved it when he said interesting. And they don't even realize what was happening. How far is 23 feet from 17? Just because the movie lied to you, just because the movie says, oh, it's 17 feet at his chest. And when he puts it above his head, it's 23 feet. What are you talking about? How is there 6 feet of space between somebody's chest and holding something above their head? At most, there's 2.5 feet. So that means that we saw it at 19.5 feet. And 17 feet was flat evidence and 23 feet was globe evidence. And we didn't see it at 23 feet. But again, nobody would know that because it's a movie where they took those scenes out and just put one little clip in of me saying interesting. What I find so interesting is that globe believers will consider that evidence. It's like, what? So, I mean, really just goes to tell me that no matter what kind of stuff we put out there, you guys will just take anything that you can, grab onto it, call it globe evidence. And then anything, and I think Mr. Sensible and what's his name last night, maybe I'll bring that up real quick, when they are going through that thing with him looking at the basketball or whatever that ball was and then showing the lens, and then he goes off and he's just, when it's globe evidence, it's perfect evidence, right? Oh no, look at what Mr. Sensible is doing here. It makes sense. He's putting that there. You can see too far. Great. But then when it's flat Earth, they have questions. Oh, what? That doesn't make sense. Why would you put a lens there? You're not allowed to put a lens there and move it wherever you want to get the results you want. You're like, literally, that's what your partner just did. That's what you just did. And they can't even see that. It's crazy.
Yeah, because they hate it, because what Brian showed was that like you can definitely replicate with just magnification effect the sun on a flat plane, right? It's just objective. And Dave Weiss has done it many times, right? But they hate that, so they have to come up with some like way to dismiss it. Oh, you're just moving it just right. Okay, so you don't have a rebuttal. But what he's doing is he's showing like that Nell, you know, off the basketball and then bringing it into view. So in scale, it would be like way far away from the basketball. It would be out in space.
Right.
Right. Like, so, but even with that, it's, yeah, like what you're saying, he's literally refuting his, but this is what's crazy. Then once that's pointed out to him and we start laughing at him for it, he just keeps saying it.
Right. They keep going. I'll show that right here.
It's so wild.
This is on Modern Day Debates. And it was I don't know what date, the other day. Anyway, recently, 2 days ago. And yeah, you can watch this part and just watch them fall apart. And then they don't even see when they're just lying to everybody. And the sad thing is, you're right. The people viewing it that are on their side see this. They don't even see it. They see it as evidence of the globe. It's crazy. Here's this part here.
Would have to be behind the other laser, but that's not what happened. So in order to explain Michelson-Morley, which showed that the...
Go a little further here.
Have you got experience in wife beating?
Do you understand
why would you bring that up? Why would you be like, is that something that your mind goes to?
Do you not understand?
Is that something that your mind goes
always.
to?
You're asking a loaded question. You said, are you honest enough to admit, and then went on to say a straw man. You're not
And the
even
answer
close
was that you
to
weren't. So-
logically competent.
Well,
dude, this
Let's
is the
move on to
point.
something else, guys.
Let's move on. Let's move on.
Wait, let me ask
well,
you,
no,
Let's move on.
You know,
hey,
there's
Kat,
no
did I
point
present
going for
evidence for a flat Earth in my opener? Did I
No,
present
no,
evidence?
but please let's have a look.
Yeah,
at it.
did I not predict you'd say that I didn't? I just wasted half of my presentation showing you evidence you've seen where an Empire State Building is supposed to be in between me and the laser, and I'm showing it shine into the camera, and you're still denying that is even evidence.
Right,
I mean,
refraction is the thing. You think you guys have mentioned geometric horizon and so on, and refraction. I can show you right now, seeing beyond a geometric horizon, just using refraction. I can show you.
I showed.
This will take a few seconds. If I just quickly share this. Is it this one?
Sorry, I'm not trying to be rude to you, Mr. Sensible. You've been
There you
cordial.
go.
I'm sorry.
What we've got.
And real quick here, we don't know, number one, this camera angle. So supposedly this is a second view of this phone camera of a ball, and then behind it is some white paper sitting on this ledge or something like that. And that we can't see it because this is obscured. But again, if you were to take like a, I don't know, piece of string and go from the camera to that piece of paper, we don't even know because there's things that can be blocked if you move that ball close enough, just like the close ocean waves block further water behind it. So we don't know exactly what's going on.
In fact, in that type, I didn't see this part because I reserved for tonight to see the debate. But at that scale that I am looking now, I don't think you have real atmospheric refraction like in the real life. That is why some of the Globers that they make, some tricks on this type of experiments. They use butan gas or nitrogen.
So what this guy does is he brings
like
a magnifying glass, right? Which again, the lens, it is a lens, and the atmosphere does work as a lens. But watch how sad this is. That they use a magnifying glass here, which is the same thing that Brian used earlier. And watch how they will allow this experiment. They allow this to be evidence, but they don't allow the other evidence for the flatter side. But it's the same exact thing. And this just shows this is what they can't see. How can Bryant not just say, oh, you're right, that both evidences are using the same exact thing, but they just say, well, this one is allowed because it means answer globe. The other one's not allowed because it means answer flat.
Dude, how tall would that build? If that was a building on the Earth, how tall would that thing be? My goodness.
About 700 miles.
And you can see the top, the base, the top of the base of the tack is perfectly in line with the geometric horizon. In the top right corner, we've got a second camera watching over the entire experiment. So you've got my phone camera, the ball with the tack on, and in the far distance on the bottom of the window ledge, you can just see a little bit of white. That's another tack with a bit of white paper. Now what happens is I introduce refraction. I introduce a lens between the ball and the camera, and we'll see it come down, and you can see the tack, you can see the geometric horizon, and as I change the refraction, you can see way beyond, and in fact, you can see the white paper behind it. That's an equivalent of the sun or the moon being lifted up by refraction. That is the equivalent of your black swan seeing past.
And again, here to me,
I don't.
This means
I don't understand the setup. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, there might be a lot. So you see here, this is a phone right here, and then and then the piece of paper behind it.
It's pointing towards the window.
Correct. The camera's pointing towards the window. This is the ball here. And then there's a little tack on top of it. But I would actually say that wherever this top of this lens is now has a line of sight to that piece of paper. Probably.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So again, that's not really the case here because I don't think anybody's necessarily disagreeing with them here. It's just that the same evidence, when we put a magnifying glass down on a flat plane, you can make everything behind it disappear bottom up.
Yeah, I am just give my opinion really, really quickly because I don't analyze this. But first of all, you don't have eye level objects. You have a camera that is more, the lens of the camera.
It's like way above
It's way, way, way above, and has a little inclination towards the window.
Yeah,
so that is not fair. That is the first mistake, because when we do long range observation, we are parallel to the ground. We are at the height of the eye level. It's completely different. If you go to a rocket and pointing a little diagonal down to the ground and things like that, you're gonna have a different view. So I don't think this is what we claim that happens, for example, with the black swan.
Right, and they use that to say that this disproves black swan.
No.
Yeah, we'll keep watching. You'll see them fall apart here. They don't even realize what they're
doing. And again, in this type of experiments, the scale is a really huge factor, because we are not talking about 1 inch of an inch. We are talking about, in some of the cases, hundreds of meters. So it's not the same thing at this scale. Is completely insane.
No, your perspective completely out of the equation here, because the Fraunhofer diffraction, that 5.5 feet happens over 3 miles, and that's the human eye. It can't resolve anything 5.5 feet within 3 miles from its, line of observation, its line of sight. And then when you start talking about 40 miles, it's like 180 feet, and that's just minimum. That's not adding in atmospherics. That's just a perfect nitrogen, oxygen-based atmosphere.
Yeah, and again, I think that the object in this case is a little in the front. It's not at the horizon, quote unquote, horizon line. There is like a
Right, 'cause
tiny
they say
bit
this
on
back
the front.
piece is right.
Yeah, exactly. So you're gonna, if you put a magnified glass, of course you're gonna see more further away. And but with this type of experiment, whatever, I'm shocked. I don't know if the guy showed that, but it's something like, okay, I'm gonna leave just one camera there, the other fixed camera. I'm going to present the magnified glass in the front of the camera. But man, take another phone and start showing a little more in detail the setup, the real time thing, not just a fixed camera which nobody can see anything. I don't know if this guy has a high quality video, but it's complete. It's like NASA cameras when they went to the moon.
Well, what he's trying to say, of course, he's trying to say that once you move that magnifying glass, like you see the quote unquote horizon that's behind the
But
right?
there,
Like, 'cause that's what
we
black
have
swan is.
already, but we have already before the magnifying glass horizon beyond the object.
So this is what this is what he's showing before we'll go.
Introduce refraction. Introduce a lens.
Right. So
between
pause.
The ball.
That's why it's not. Iri's right. It's why it doesn't work. The horizon in this analogy, for it to be equivalent to the black swan, the nail should be blocked by by the ball, and then you should put the magnifying glass and see behind it. We can already see the horizon behind it.
Exactly.
And you just make it magnified. It's so stupid.
And again, I think here the key is that he have a camera way up in terms of the scale from the eye level horizon. And that is an important factor.
Right, it's way higher. It's be way out, even further than
It's
they are in
super
space.
higher, man. And we are still looking beyond the object. So
And plus, I
they
think it
are
has
just
to be
amplifying what we
looking
see
down.
already.
It has to be looking down. There's no way if this camera is
Exactly.
flat that
Yeah.
you would see this shaped window here, this angle. It's pointed down.
No,
it's hard to see it
of
from here,
course,
but
man.
it's pointed
Of
down for
course,
sure.
yeah. It's completely biased, this type of
Right,
setup,
so exactly
because
the
they
point is-
cannot reproduce that.
Right, but the point is that they set up these experiments to show exactly what they want to show, right? So now watch conspiracy cats then say that's what we do, even though it's exactly what this experiment is. It's hilarious to see they don't even get it, and then Austin and Brian just start laughing
You
at
see
them.
it come down.
It's hilarious.
And you can see the tack. You can see the geometric horizon. And as I change the refraction, you can see way beyond. And in fact, you can see the white paper behind it. That's an equivalent of the sun or the moon being lifted up by refraction. That is the equivalent of your black
It's almost like you
swan
tipped it
seeing
forward, too,
past
but anyway.
the towers.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
because of
it's still
refraction.
that is what I'm trying
Change
to
the-
say when
the
I
position
say
of the camera,
diagonal.
change the
Sorry
camera.
for my
I've
English, man.
introduced refraction. It's a real thing. And that also debunks your whole black swan thing if you were going to bring that up, so don't bother.
I thought I showed that your
Again,
your
sorry,
experiment,
but the
experiment,
white paper that supposedly that's little spill that come on, man, that it's impossible to be the white paper. In fact, if that is the case, at least make some move on the white paper, make something, put a little pencil on top, something that really show that that part is the white paper, because that is completely like it's just a lens brightness coming from the window, whatever. I mean, you cannot argue that that is the white paper.
I mean, shouldn't it be that on the equinox that there's not 12 hours and 12 hours, because really the sun should be above the horizon more than it's below because of refraction. I mean, if they say that the sun is below the horizon, but we see it above, then from the time that we see it, it's actually not above the horizon. So we watch it all day, then it's above the horizon. And then when we see it disappear, it's actually going to still be seen until it's well past the horizon. So we should have like 12 and a half hours to 11 and a half on the equinox, because supposedly refraction is moving the sun up in the sky. It never moves it. It's just weird to me that they can't see that there's a problem with that. Let's watch this.
Yeah, no, I think the most beautiful thing is that these guys know that he cannot reproduce what he's trying to reproduce. So that
Yeah,
is
it's just so funny
why he's
'cause
cheating.
It's so funny what he ends up saying about. He ends up like refuting it.
It's so bad.
I didn't do that. That wasn't mine. That wasn't
No,
mine.
no,
I don't know.
it was in my opening presentation.
Yes, I know. It was nothing to do with me. You said about me doing a laser experiment. I haven't done one. That's someone else.
No, yeah, okay. But my point is I showed y'all's best evidence. I'll even put this at second best. But you put a little city skyline at the back of the fish tank, and put sugar in the fish tank in the water and let it dissolve to pretty much mock a density gradient. You say the light's curving down, but with line of sight, we watched half the city disappear. With
Austin, I didn't watch the beginning of this one. Is he talking about Mick West's experiment?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Because I've seen a Mick West where he points a laser at some city and he's like showing a hump, but he lies about that experiment too. The laser is actually off to the side. I'd have to show you, but anyway.
Battle not.
I think the one that
lest ye
is a
become
green laser, right?
Yeah, through the fish tank, right?
They didn't. We didn't. They're talking about one that wasn't actually shown in the debate, but he's just saying like he's covered it before.
Oh, okay, gotcha. We'll keep going.
I don't know which one it was.
Yeah, I think it's the famous one of the first that is like a fish tank and it's like a green laser and then create this hub and sugar water. Of course, that nobody lives in the sugar water. In fact, the index of refraction change via temperature and pressure. It's not changed based on materials, you know.
Right. Okay. Here we
Nobody breathes sugar, man.
Okay, cool. Is there two different mediums in the atmosphere?
Hold on. Cats, what's the density? What's the density gradient over 10 miles of atmosphere on a 70-degree temperature day?
What is the density gradient over 10 miles?
Did I go to the wrong spot?
On 70 degrees. What are you talking about?
What's the refractive index? What's the refractive?
I think this is right after it.
I went too far here. Okay, gotcha. We're back here.
Or the moon being lifted up by refraction.
Yeah, right there's good.
That is the equivalent of your black swan seeing past the towers because of refraction. I have not changed the position of the camera. I've not changed the settings of the camera. I've introduced refraction. It's a real thing. And that also debunks your whole black swan thing if you were going to bring that up, so don't bother.
I thought I showed that your famous experiment.
Again, he's introduced magnification. I don't think that you can call this 100 pure refraction in this type of experiment. We, as well, when we trying to do things like the Rob Skiva experiment, things like that, yeah, you are cheating refraction, but it's not an actual refraction. You are magnifying things that you can, show little behavior in terms of the atmosphere, quote unquote. But if you really go and do a nice experiment, I always show that one that there is in the controlled environment, which is in the lab, and you have a fish tank with nanotubes that are injected different temperatures in different water with different temperature, and you can really emulate the Fata Morgana and the index of refraction. And I just, give my opinion in this case when he said that he's alternating the index of refraction.
It's amazing that everything is an illusion, right? No matter what it is.
No matter, yeah. But again, the most important thing here is we already see beyond the horizon of the object in this case. So this is a completely invalid observation or experiment.
I think that the point is what they're talking about is this white paper. That you couldn't see the white paper before. Now you can see the white paper. They're saying, why would you be able to see it? Why would something be hidden?
You don't have any proof that is a white paper.
I didn't do that. That wasn't mine. That wasn't mine.
No, it was in my opening presentation.
Yes, I know. It was nothing to do with me. You said about me doing a laser experiment. I haven't done one. That's someone else.
I know. Yeah. Okay. But my point is I showed y'all's best evidence. I'll even put this at second best. But you put a little city skyline at the back of the fish tank, and put sugar in the fish tank in the water and let it dissolve to pretty much mock a density gradient. You say the light's curving down, but with line of sight, we watched half the city disappear. With direct, flat line of sight, we watched the top come down and the bottom go up. It almost looked like the bottom of the city disappeared. So all these mountains in the background, and I mean, it's explained by y'all's example of how the atmosphere works, and it was backed up by experts of how the sun sets.
What we're looking at
this part, watch what he says.
We're looking at the light rays travel through the atmosphere. The atmosphere is a medium; it refracts. I have just shown, because I don't think anyone would dispute that there is a physical ball there. Therefore, it has a geometrical edge. we can now see further around that ball because of the refraction. That's what happens in real life. Now, someone in the chat just mentioned, oh, you've introduced a lens. Yeah, a lens uses refraction.
That's crazy. So basically, if you just beg the question, then
no, I didn't. I just showed that you can bend light using refraction, which is what the atmosphere does, which enables you to see further than the geometric.
You didn't use the actual
you never lost
conditions.
line of sight to that.
You use the actual conditions of the Atmos, of course. So it's literally
unfortunately, I don't have a planet-sized ball in my office that I can use to demonstrate it.
Interrupt.
That is a demonstration, and
make sure you censor me, and then you can win the debate. Make sure you censor me.
Sorry?
As I rebut, make sure you censor me.
What are you talking about?
Do you want to hear the rebuttal now? So you didn't use actual atmospheric conditions. And secondly, all you're doing is begging the question by thinking that applies to the Earth and assuming there's a geometric horizon there. Basically, your argument is there is a curvature there, but we can never see it. We can only assume it's there. That's called a begging the question fallacy. That's what you're doing.
I'm begging no question. With something like the Black Swan and other see-too-far claims by flat earthers, they say it's ridiculous. How could you see beyond the curve if there is a curve? I'm just showing you with refraction, you can see beyond that curve. That lens is between the camera and the ball. So how can we see beyond the edge of the ball?
So the equivalent of that would be to say that you put a mirror there, right? So you say, oh, well, there's a mirror we placed halfway between this hallway and this hallway. And how can we see around the corner of the hallway? Well, you say, because of the mirror.
And again, we are already seen beyond the horizon before the lens is put on front of the camera. And second, he doesn't show any proof or direct observation that white spot, it's the paper. So he's not making anything. And again, the eye level not correspond with the camera and the setup and blah, blah, blah.
How hard would it be to have this as your evidence? The evidence is if we see a boat go over the curve, it's evidence of a curved Earth. If we don't see the boat go over the edge of the curve, it's because of the curved Earth, causing the boat to not ever go over the curve because you can see it forever. You've basically taken the whole slate of observations and said that no matter what, they prove globe. That's what they've done. There's not even. How is that not presupposing your outcome?
It bends the rays of light round to the camera, to your eyes. That is a demonstration of refraction. It's not saying that is an exact replica of what happens on Earth. But we know there's refraction because we know that something like, is it the Chicago skyline? Yeah. Once in however often you can see Chicago across the lake, but most times you can't.
You said most times you can't see Chicago across the lake, which is...
Yeah, I called him out because I went there to that very location. And unfortunately, when we were there on the tour, it was like when the fires on the West Coast were real big. So there was all kinds of obstruction in the sky. You could barely see anything. But I went around and asked all the locals. Me and Chris went and asked a bunch of locals about it. They said you see it all the time. As you see it, like you can see it like 4 or 5 times a week.
Right.
And if you don't see it during the day, when the sun sets, you almost always see it. So it's like the silhouette.
And then it's not supposed to be seen at all. That's what they miss is that. And then that line changes, where exactly you lose the buildings changes. So what is happening? Are we supposed to believe that the water rises and lowers, that there's some sort of bulge of water that rises and lowers? No, it's all.
It's wrong. I went to that very location.
Would you agree that the lens still had line of sight, Mr. Sensible? Would you agree that the lens still had line of sight?
How can it have line of sight around a curve?
What? That's not what he said.
I'm asking you. You say that the lens didn't have line of sight, but in 2 feet, we've showed you just in a garage 100 feet. We have opened the garage door and showed you atmospheric effects with actual atmosphere.
Okay.
You show us a lens where the top of it has line of sight. Sorry.
Now watch
what he says. James, can I screen share, please? Yep.
This is where it just gets dumb.
By the way, I went to Chicago at that very place, and I asked all the locals, and they said you see it 3 or 4 times a week. So why would you say you never?
Not every time. Not all the time.
You said you barely ever see it.
Well, I'm just going to screen share you, Austin.
I've been there. I know you see it all the time.
Austin, our hands up say I could be wrong about the frequency, but the point is you don't always see the same because the atmosphere changes.
Yeah, Flat Earth doesn't deny that. So cool story.
So what we've got here again,
and again, the fact that you aren't supposed to see any buildings there, but you see them they don't call that evidence. That's just evidence of refraction. So no matter what you throw at these guys, they can just say it's
what we've
evidence
got
for
here,
them.
again, from the beginning of the debate. Am I? Yeah, there we go. So we're coming
Well,
up on the
but
screen now.
sorry. One point. That is why, for me, Chicago is undenied. We have some equivalent in Argentina with Uruguay, etc., etc. But when you go with the observation of Jay Tolan, you really avoid like 90% of this discussion about the refraction, because he's very, very way up, really above that layer of refraction. Of course, you are still seeing, but it's not interact with you as if you are on the ground. And when you see some of the observation of Jay Tolan, he makes observations like 3 times the prediction of the globe. And that is something that everybody can do. You can take a flight ticket, you can take camera, an infrared lens, and make your own long-range distance observation. So,
wasn't it Jeran that did the calculation from a plane flying 35,000 feet? You should only see about 250 miles.
yeah, 357 kilometers is a tangent point where you cannot see beyond that. And Jay Tolan, sorry because I use kilometers instead of mile, but
dare you.
Jay Tolan see 940 kilometers with distinguished features on the ground. Of course, he is still looking beyond those snow peak of the mountains, but that is impressive, man. I mean, 940 kilometers when the prediction of the globe is only 357 without any distortion.
Darren,
you don't
you have
have
to
any
type
fata
in-
morgana.
You have to type in sunset to get the good ones. There's one where the sunset is behind the Chicago and it's viewed from like 70 miles away, I think. It's insane. That pink one, you see that pink one? The second row, first one in the second row to the left.
Here.
Yeah. Look at that, dude. Dude, how are you saying the shadows refracted up?
Wow.
This is game over.
Yeah, and that's why when I've seen the videos of Canigou, I wonder if there's any good videos of us. Would this be sunrise or sunset?
That's sunset.
Sunset. Yeah, if there's any good videos of that, because when you see that the buildings don't move, right? Just like Canigou doesn't move. Canigou, you can watch from the sun way above it to the sun way below it, and those are silhouettes. They don't move. They're not shadows. They're not being cast up. They're not being loomed. So my guess is that these guys are saying that basically the whole world then unfolds itself as appearing flat.
Yeah, I mean, you're not sharing that. I don't know if you are. Think you
No,
are, but
not.
like that's what's so funny. I've never heard a bar be able to answer this, right? So as the sun comes down, you don't see the buildings at all, and then you start to see the top of the building, the rest of the building, as the sun goes behind it. They're claiming that the sun and those buildings are being refracted up together over a curve. So you can easily debunk that by watching the sun go down behind the buildings and then seeing more and more of the buildings as the sun goes down, right? It's so stupid. According to what they say, that sun's not actually there. It's already down below the earth, which means you should see floating silhouettes of buildings blocking the sun up in the air and all that stuff. So it's like, it's insane how stupid what they say.
And I guess, does it make sense what I'm saying, that if let's say we're looking at this horizon here, and if the sun is here, let's say it's rising here. We're just about to watch it rise, but it's down here, right? That's what they say. So we're seeing it rise, but really it's down here. So now we see it in the sky. So on the equinox, shouldn't it be that then it gets to the other side? Now let's say it's setting. Well, when it's setting, if we see it here, it's actually down here. So how then in the sky that we see, wouldn't it be way more than 12 hours? Because it's always above the horizon, because it's always below and refracted up. So when the real sun gets here, it's not like it catches up to the other sun. Like, what sun are we
would
seeing?
be way more than 12 hours.
But way more.
It would.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Because when does the sun speed up, or we would actually see a morphing, like a coming together of the real sun and the fake sun, or the real sun and I don't know. It's just crazy to me that they try and use that as evidence. I don't see how that can be evidence. I don't see how we can really believe that the sun is down here, but we see it up here. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's just all begging the question. It's like textbook begging the question. And then he goes on to say all flat earthers can do is make little videos with tricks about lenses. It's like, what? That's what you just do.
He makes the tricks, man.
And look at this. This is, I mean, like, this is not a mirage. that's why I put that at the beginning of all my videos, is because that was the key to just starting to realize that people will make excuses for the globe Earth, even though they know that they're not true. Every physicist or every atmospheric expert knows this is not a mirage, but they have to call it that. It's the same thing when we see the boat floating, right? You see those boats floating. Boats floating is like any person who's using their brain knows that the boat is not floating. They know that. Okay, they know that, but they can't admit that. They can't admit it because what it tells people is that, wait a second, if this actually means that the horizon, which you can see it, you can see the horizon is here. So what that means is that when they talk about, oh, the horizon dropped, oh, the horizon dipped, oh, when we get higher, the horizon goes lower, oh, Wolfie measured and it's this far below level, every time it's wrong because you're not seeing the actual horizon. So they can't tell you that. They can't tell people that this boat isn't floating because we can see the water line, right? The water is a lot further than that hard line that we get, which is where you start getting the refraction or the mirroring of the sky with the water, which makes it look like you get a hard line here. So when you start seeing them lie about things like this, that's when you know that you don't need to lie to get the truth across. You would just tell people, oh, actually the horizon line's back here. It's not actually floating. But they don't ever say that. I've never seen one article say that. They all make it seem like it's some optical illusion, or I wonder if they're going to actually say that. If it's a hovering ship photographed, again, it's not hovering. They should just tell people, oh, by turning the levels, we see that the horizon line is actually way back here. But again, they're not going to say that because that's certainly not good evidence for the globe. It says this illusion is common in the Arctic, but can appear very rarely in the UK during winter. He says he was stunned. Superior mirages this occur because of weather conditions known as a temperature inversion, where cold air lies close to the sea, warmer air above it. When that happens, you see a flipping. You see a reflection of the boat upside down above it. So that's not what's going on here. Superior mirages can produce a few different types of images. Here, a distant ship appears to float high above its actual position, but sometimes an object below the horizon can become visible. See what they're doing here? That's not true. It's just not true. So
these people don't think for themselves, right? So there's not like a huge field of study from mainstream academic sources that have been peer reviewed that talk in depth accurately about refractive effects looking through the atmos in the distance. So they have nothing to regurgitate or believe. So they can't listen to it. When we start talking about this, it literally goes over their head. They can't compute it because it can't be coming. New information can't come from us. So that's as simple as it is. It's a psychological battle, right? It's like they literally don't comprehend you right now, Jeran. You know, like DFE does not comprehend what you're saying.
No, they can't. Or else you have to call him dishonest, one or the other. Because
it's like, it's not that he's stupid. It's that he's under a spell. So it's like, yeah, he's believing something that's a lie. So he's by extension, saying things dishonestly. But like, no, yeah, like I just think I had this realization a few weeks ago. I really realized it. Like, dude, they can literally not understand you. They can't see what you're saying. They can't see what you're showing them. It's like, oh well. Like, there's no way they're going to sit here and watch you and be like, oh, Jeran taught me something about.
No, because I'm not in the position where you teach somebody. They believe that only truth can come from professors, from books, from previous generations of scientists. That's it. So that's why they have to first ask you, well, was this peer reviewed? Have you, where's your credentials? Because if you don't have that, then you literally are not allowed to have ideas or anything new to the table. It's impossible to them. It's impossible that some guy on YouTube would be able to know something that all these climate scientists don't know, right?
I said at the beginning of the debate that the evidence for you will be silly examples of taking things like a torch or a lens.
Okay, so look what he's saying. He says the evidence that you guys will bring will be silly examples where you'll take things like a torch or a lens and you'll put it in a position that will then show you what you want to see, and then you'll claim that as evidence, which is literally what Mr. Sensible just showed. Is him show you a little experiment with a little lens that he puts where exactly he needs it to be to give you the observation he wants you to see, and then claim that that's evidence for the globe. Now he's saying flat earthers will do that, and it will be hilarious. Watch.
And moving it into that specific position to get the exact effect that you wanted. And this is now what you're using as your actual evidence. I parodied it at the beginning as a joke, and you're using it now. Yet Mr. Sensible, who actually made his effect through the actual air,
Wait, what? Now he's saying, but Mr. Sensible, he actually made his effect happen through the air. No, he didn't. He used a magnifying glass. He used a lens.
Without needing to put a lens of any kind.
He didn't need to put a lens of any kind?
In between to show his refraction.
What?
You're doing the exact thing here.
What?
You're doing exactly what I said you were doing. You've taken a lens, you've put it in the exact position you want to get the effect you want. Mr. Sensible's shown the curve on the ball. Sorry, when he's taken the lens, he's not been fiddling around with it to get it in the exact position he wants. He's moved it. We can see the exact refraction that we want.
I'm losing it. And then we see the exact refraction that we want. It's like he realized during his sentence that he's lying.
Wow. You just said that he did the same thing you're accusing him of, because if you change the lens, it would change the way refraction looks. And he had to use exactly the right conditions to make it look like what he needed it to do. You literally just refuted your own
and he
teammate.
just said the atmosphere is a lens.
No, I didn't say the atmosphere is a lens. I said
sorry, I haven't finished all yet.
This is bad.
I think I got slightly.
Oh, I think I got ahead of myself. Something happened.
When you took your lens there in that beginning example there, you took it and you maneuvered it. You maneuvered it specifically into the position that you needed to be to get that exact view that you needed. And you're using that as evidence of things disappearing bottom up.
Like Mr. Sensible just did.
No, Mr. Sensible didn't do anything of the sort to show that things.
He didn't do anything of the sort. He didn't put a lens in exactly the spot that he needed to show the observation that he wanted to show.
Anything of the sort.
He
literally just did, dude.
I've not finished, but Mr. Sensible had his ball out. He had his nail on the balloon, and he's taken just a lens and he's just wafted it in any old position.
Any
He's
old
not
position.
Deliberately manipulated it to get the exact view he's wanted. He's put it down, and he's shown something ever so slightly different. He's shown that refraction can cause a big effect. He's shown that he can do exactly what you're doing over the other side of a ball.
Only when it's in the perfect position, though, right?
However, what Mr. Sensible isn't doing with that, however, Mr. Sensible is not doing with that, is claiming that we can use a lens here to make things disappear from the bottom up, which is what you're doing with your lens.
Yeah, that's their evidence versus yours.
Well, they're different things, man. Like, I don't see, how do you not understand that he's literally doing the same thing? If he moves his lens, the effect changes, and he does the experiment or the demonstration, not experiment, exactly like he needs to show the possibility of something happening. He did the same thing. So you're refuting your own teammate.
Well, no,
he literally just repeated my evidence, Austin.
Yeah, thanks.
Crazy.
So what you've done though, let's just get this.
Yeah,
right.
sum this up for us.
You've taken a picture of that skyline. You've taken a lens and you put it in position in front of that skyline and not seen what you want to see. So then you've maneuvered it specifically in position to get exactly what you want to see and said, "Oh, there you go. That comports to what the atmosphere is."
I said to rewind that again. He just describes exactly what we just saw from Mr. Sensible. He says, what you've done is you've put a camera there. You don't see what you want to see. So therefore, you've done something else to manipulate it, to make you see the thing you want to see. And then you're claiming that it's evidence for what you've seen. And you're like, yeah, that's exactly what
and again, the actual object is in front of the horizon. So he's amplified the rest of the horizon that is behind the object, and he claims that white spot is the paper, which is something that that is really beyond that little sphere object. He's not proved that white spot is just that could be the white spot that a magnifying lens receive for a tiny light interaction. So why he
you'll have to see it again too,
that is the paper? He doesn't have any proof that white spot is a paper. That could be a little tiny 1 centimeter spot of light entering into the lens. And that's all.
That's what you've seen. What you've done though, let's just get this right. What you've done is you've taken a picture of that skyline. You've taken a lens and you put it in position in front of that skyline and not seen what you want to see.
Right.
So then you've maneuvered it specifically in position to get exactly what you want to see and said, oh, there you go. that comports to what the atmosphere is. That's what you've done. But look at what Mr. Sensible is doing here.
What did he do?
Using a magnifying glass, which is literally what Brian was showing, the same effect, and you're trying to show
how is that the same effect? How is that the same effect as what you showed?
Did you not watch it?
How is this the same effect?
The magnification explains why the sun can disappear from the bottom
Is
up
that
on a
nail
flat Earth.
vanishing bottom up?
How can I magnify
Is that
something?
nail vanishing bottom up?
Hey, is there
It's
sense
not
if
behind
you
the
move
corner.
that around, would it change, or would it stay exactly the same if you move the magnifying glass around?
I'll just play that bit again. But how could I magnify something that's hidden behind the ball? How could I magnify
It's
that
literally
piece of
not.
paper that is not in view? It's not in view. I put the lens in between. The light is which would have passed over the camera at the wrong angle is now bent down, so I can see that white bit of paper right behind. I can see past the tack, which I couldn't see before. Okay, that's all it's showing. I'll stop sharing again.
And
also, of course, you need
and
to-
I'm of the belief that if you just rewind it a little bit, that if you drew a line, if you took a piece of fishing line or something and tied it to the top of this thing and went down, this does have line of sight to the paper, right? So the camera does not. The camera's behind. Let's say it's behind the ball. Well, the camera doesn't, but this magnifying glass does. So again, just because you can put a mirror up here and reflect this over to the camera doesn't mean that then we can say, oh, that's how we can see beyond curves. Because this would be a never-ending kind of atmospheric
And again,
duct.
this is not a valid experiment. He is
Way
with
above.
the camera way above, and he's actually showing horizon beyond the tiny object. So this is a complete and invalid replication of what they
In
try
real
to
life,
achieve.
we would be
It's-
down
it's-
here.
It's not.
You'd be
yeah,
a person
no, it's
down here
worse
looking
to
this
use a
way.
mirror.
Yeah, and you would only have this little bit of atmosphere here, and it has to somehow allow you to see way beyond the curve. From here, this is what, from space? 1,000 miles high.
But right behind, I can see past.
You know,
the
Mr.
tack.
Sensible claims science
Okay.
doesn't prove anything.
Huh?
Mr. Sensible claims science doesn't prove anything.
Oh,
That's
gotcha.
his big thing lately. And so we had this big long discussion about cats. Can I prove that my cat eats food? And he said, no, you can't prove it. It's impossible. It was hilarious.
Okay, here we go.
Before. Okay, that's all it's showing. I'll stop sharing again.
And also, of course, you need to show an outside angle of what you're doing with the camera because I don't trust ballers. But it doesn't matter. The point is that
It's there on screen, Austin.
Yeah, but
I
what
wouldn't-
caused that refraction, man? what
actually,
caused us to see
hold
around your ball?
Oh, I believe you. It
Refraction.
doesn't matter.
Look there, in
Oh,
the
yeah,
top,
there it is.
in
Cool.
the top right corner, the whole time. You can. It's filmed constantly, so
Okay.
you can see it. Okay.
So then
'Cause,
you admit,
nothing is
this
underhand.
doesn't. You admit that using magnification can explain phenomena on both a flat plane and a globe.
Right, at least get there.
How does a lens work, Austin?
Oh, answer my
refraction.
question. Answer my
It's
question,
re-
Brian.
Yeah.
So
I
if
know,
it's permissible to
not-
use the magnification,
See,
then it's permissible.
he won't even say that. He won't even admit that what Austin just said is true. Why? Because if you're a glober, you cannot ever say that anything is evidence of flat ever. So you can't.
Yeah, that anything could ever work on a.
Never. Nothing could work on a flat Earth. It only could work on a globe. And it's just ridiculous because it's so obvious to anyone who's paying attention.
So, sorry. Can you rewind a little bit because I believe that what he's showing as a paper is like a tiny, and maybe on purpose, a tiny white point on the bottom of the window. I don't know if you
Yeah,
can.
I think it is.
And also, of course, you need to show an outside angle of what you're doing with the camera.
Further or right
Trust
here?
Ballers, but it doesn't matter.
When
The point
he
is that-
starts moving around the
Yeah,
setup,
but what caused that refraction, man?
the guy shows a little bit when Austin said that I don't trust.
Oh, right here.
There,
This
in
part.
the
Yeah, there
top-
it is.
In the top right corner,
Yes.
the whole time.
So
you can. It's filmed
pause. Did you see that tiny white point
Here?
on the window? Yeah.
Okay.
So could be that.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's not the white paper. Or that
No,
is
that's
what
the
he
white
called
paper.
the
That's
white
what he's calling
paper.
the white paper.
Okay. Sorry, guys. I was thinking about the actual paper where everything is on top.
No, I'm
Okay.
sorry. He's talking about this
Okay,
white
well, that-
paper here that appears.
And that could happen because now in this right very moment we are looking at that part of the window.
Right.
The trick here is that the camera it's a little oblique showing already that the horizon not at the eye level. The camera is really high.
Right, way high.
Exactly. So that is
Correct.
completely biased. Of course, you are going to see that tiny paper. It's completely wrong, the setup.
Right. And from
Well, the
here,
difference is what Brian showed actually is a legitimate representation right? And what he showed isn't, and he goes out of his way making it where it looks like it, even though it's not. So he's actually the one doing.
So which one did Brian show?
that.
Because I didn't watch the beginning of this.
So he shows like where
Can
you
I go
take
back
like
and
a
find
little
it?
depiction of the sun and you move it away with magnification, and the sun looks like it's disappearing from the bottom up, but not changing angular size.
It was in his intro.
Rob Skiba did that
Yeah.
experiment.
So like
Yeah.
starting about here. Oops. So
For a couple of years, finally,
let's see what
we showed him the black swan and proved
Yeah, somewhere
beyond
within
reasonable
there.
doubt. Okay, this here is
Right there,
Yeah.
you were just on it.
So now this one here is great. I've always used this one because what this meteorologist put back here is a picture of the city, and then he's showing that this table actually blocks. If you were to do a level, it would be behind the flat level of this table. But when you move the magnifying glass there, you can all of a sudden see the whole city. What's missing from this explanation is the fact that if you put water here, which is what really is happening, right? So if you put water in this space between the magnifying glass and the buildings, then what would happen? Well, what would happen is half the buildings would be covered with water because this magnifying glass would be magnifying everything behind it, which is nothing but water, and then that lifts up the water. That's why we get the buildings blocked by water.
the
You'll see that.
weathermen. This is how they explained us seeing Michigan, the skyline of Chicago from Lake Michigan across Lake Michigan. And they say the atmosphere acts like a lens. So they always ask us how could a sun set on a flat Earth? Well, just with a little lens and on a flat surface, just backing it away. And
Also notice that doesn't change size when you have
exactly.
they always ask us how could a sun
The
set.
Globeruthers love to try to argue
on a
against
flat
this
Earth.
claim
Well,
by
just
saying,
with a
"Oh, well, the
little lens.
atmosphere isn't like circular like that lens is."
Right.
And
See, here's where you miss.
there they
where
go
you-
again. They're using the same thing, and yeah,
Kyle, this is
the
what you
same
missed at the
argument's
beginning.
gonna
Is that
go
I was
against
saying that that's what they do, right? So if it's evidence of the globe, then it's ironclad, no doubt about it. Bob proved spin, I proved curve. All this does, everything proves globe. But if there's anything that we say is the same thing but it proves flat, they say no, it's impossible. You can't do that.
Yeah,
But the atmosphere is not a piece of plastic. You can't. But when Mr. Sensible does that, well, see, this is why refraction works.
On a flat surface, just backing it away. And another thing you'll notice that the sun is setting, it's also not shrinking in size. So y'all please don't ask that question. There's a perfectly reasonable demonstration with the experts backing us up. So there's lensing, and here's what happens when you zoom out. When you zoom out, then you get obstruction.
So this is why we see the top of buildings across Lake Michigan.
Get obstruction, and with the lensing comes magnification. So the angular sides of the sun, it wouldn't play much of a part, and it sets just fine. So this is the laser and sugar water. This is how they said the atmosphere worked. They say the light refracts downward to the denser medium. So yeah, I don't argue that. Whatever's happening, look what happens when he lowers the camera. You see that obstruction? So their only demonstration of how refraction works literally shows how it would work on a flat Earth. This is, you see that compression. It's not things disappearing. It's literally compression. There's the local oil rig, and look at the ones in the distance. It's compression, and it took years of photo. We would have never knew. The one up top, we would have thought half the boat was missing if the stenoline wasn't written on the side of it. Thanks, Ranchy. But it's literally compression. And look, so the horizon is beyond this boat. Earth curve is not blocking this boat. But with the shoaling and the conditions, I see where people came to that conclusion. So for the sake of being honest.
Yeah, I agree with Brian there. That I also can see that if it was the year 1,000 years ago, let's say, I could see where people would have thought that the Earth was curved. They would have seen boats go out. They would have seen them disappear bottom up. They would have said, well, what else could it be? Here's my problem, is if science realized down the road that they were wrong about that, they could never admit it. What would they have to do? I don't know. Set up space agencies and a whole shitload of things, because the alternative to that is to admit they've been so grossly wrong about something that actually brings God back into the picture that the entire world would turn their back on science. The entire world, and they would have no more careers. Okay? Brian would have no more accolades. People would laugh at him. So he can't have that. So he has to do what he can every day to protect the globe, because it's basically his entire identity based around it.
But so there's more examples of compression. Look toward the bottom floors. So next I want to squeeze in the star trails.
So that's the one he was talking about.
Sounds like, look at stellarium.
Yeah,
shows
yeah.
separation. Okay. I've talked about.
I talked to MC Toon about the whole fish tank experiment there, and what Brian was looking at there was the Mick West version of the fish tank laser experiment.
Where is that one?
And MC Toon was claiming
So he
that,
showed it just a couple seconds. I didn't remember that was in there, but there's like a laser where he moves the angle right there.
Yeah, this one here with the green laser.
Yeah.
People have to see that
so
because
that's a Mick West laser experiment.
wonder if we
and
could find
that was
that
a
one.
globe earther doing it. And MC Toon claimed the only reason why that was possible was because the bottom of the fish tank was curved. That was his claim. And so that's what led me to do my own fish tank laser experiment. And yeah, it had nothing to do with there being any kind of curvature at the bottom of the fish tank.
Duh.
I don't know. I've never seen this movie by Dr. John D. But again, I have seen Mick West where he does it, and then he kind of lies. He's showing the laser saying, "Oh, look, it goes across," but it doesn't. It actually hits the curvature of the bottom of the tank, so he has to move it to the side of it where there is no curvature, and then he claims that that's what he's showing. So let's watch. I want to watch Austin with Fight the Fat Shirt yesterday or whatever. Was that yesterday or the day before? But you
Friday.
said whose channel do you want me to watch it from? I forgot. What's the channel name?
It doesn't matter. So I watched it from his channel because it's got a bigger view of him and you get to watch his facial expressions, and I think it's really funny. But you can watch that, or I can send you the other one.
Yeah, send me the other one.
Okay, I'll send you the one.
Or wait, you're saying the one from his channel has the funnier face expressions?
Yeah, because it shows him bigger on the screen,
Yeah,
but
we'll see
this
that
other one also shows him on the screen, just much smaller, so it's not as funny to me.
Oops.
I mean, he copyrighted me, but like it's just for mine. So we don't run ads on these anyways, right? So it doesn't really matter. I mean,
I don't think unless we want to go to Rockfin now. Can't.
oh,
copyright something.
I want at least some of this to be watched by people on here because I think I really truly believe a lot of flat earthers need to go watch this.
Yes.
So I know that so at least so they can see some of it here on YouTube because they know what they need to go watch. I think it's important to kind of. So flat earthers need to start understanding this is important, and we actually have debate flat earth, trying to tell people not to ever talk about this, right? So it's I just think it's important that people understand this is like a huge nail in the coffin.
Yeah, and I think if you don't have the 3 hour, I didn't know it was 3 hours. I thought that.
Well, yeah, but the actual debate is only an hour,
okay.
an hour, I think, and he just probably chants to his people a lot afterwards, right?
I almost feel like playing your closing real quick, just at the end, and then we'll watch from the beginning. But the closing will give people some hope, I think. Let me find that part, because he just gets destroyed the whole time. Right about there, probably. Let's see where we're at.
Person that you think I am. Hey, I can turn it on when I need to, but I actually want this conversation for real reasons. Okay, and I'm going as well. Something there's one.
Now I know a lot of people disagree with that, but whatever.
Okay, well, listen from here
that
just for a couple
independently
minutes.
established change.
Did my job. Next.
Thank you, Craig. Go ahead with it. Any closing statements? 2 or 3 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, so I'm saying that it would change because, if you're claiming that it's establishing an independent frame of reference, then the Earth is a different frame of reference, which means if it's moving under that independently established frame of reference, then it should just automatically move because the Earth is moving in an independent frame. Now, I know a lot of people disagree with that, but whatever. I'm not making specific claims about the ether or the medium, although I am quite confident in my ability to debate that with the best of them, and all evidence shows that. As opposed to claiming virtual particles, virtual photons, quantum foam, quantum fluid, all this different crazy stuff. But that's up to each individual person to research it. I was just showing that the claim that it's only possible if the Earth is rotating is not true. Of course, correlation does not equal causation. So if we see that the pendulum does precess differently on different places of the Earth, that doesn't prove the Earth's a ball that spins. We cannot just beg the question that the Earth is spinning, therefore causes the pendulum to precess. That's a begging the question. I just invoked Einstein to show that even within relativity itself, which I don't have to believe anyway, of course, you have to admit that you actually cannot exclude the fact that the Earth could be stationary with the sky moving around it and then motion being translated to it, giving you centrifugal and Coriolis effects. I showed the reason that seems the most probable is if you look at the motion of the stars and the planets and you look at the magnetic flux data, this all fits within what we see a magnetic field manifests as, and we would be the dielectric inertial plane in the middle. No one's ever given me a specific answer where the inertial plane would even be on the globe. So in conclusion,
like I said at the beginning, the default position is that the Earth is stationary topographical plane. That's what all observations show us. That's what we have to treat the Earth as for all technology effectively. And despite this, they claim that the opposite is true. So they have a very substantial burden of proof. And then I went to explain how this is the case. Like, relativity claims that time slows down, which is just an absurd claim. Time slows down, and then if we travel the speed of light, we'd experience timelessness, and matter's constantly contracting, but you can't tell, which means everyone listening to this right now is physically contracting because they're flying in space around the sun. That's literally what it says. And so the point is that it basically, heliocentrism is a philosophy of the Copernican principle that you're insignificant, and it waves its magical wand that says everything you experience in life is an illusion, and the horizon looks horizontal, but it's curved. The sun and the moon look like they're above the horizon during the selenium, but they're actually not. That's an illusion. It looks like the horizon's too far. That's an illusion. Looks like we see things too far. That's an illusion. Looks like the Earth is stationary. That's an illusion, and we could keep going. So I encourage people to trust their senses, apply Occam's razor, and establish honestly within yourself that the default position is the Earth's a stationary topographical plane, and then make sure you rigorously test any claim antithetical to that and make it verify exclusivity with empirical evidence. I do appreciate the overall cordiality of the debate, and cool.
Excellent. Hey, thank you guys both. I think you guys both did a great job. I invite you both to hang around for as long as you can stomach the chaos.
But I like to the very good one, which is the detection of Earth's rotation with a diamagnetically levitating gyroscope, where they use.
Where do you want to start, Austin? Where do you think's best here? And I think it's, like I said, I encourage any flat earther to go watch this whole thing. It will really kind of help cement some things for you. And I think you have to know the order of things that happened that led to Michelson-Morley, that then led to Sagnac, that led to Lorentz, that led to Einstein, that led to Hawking. Once you see the way things went down and why they went down the way they did, then it becomes painfully clear. And these guys just refuse to admit any of that even happened in the order that it happened. They'll just say, no, that's not, it wasn't because of that. Or they'll say, when you say, oh, Einstein said no optical experiment. Oh, he was only talking about Michelson-Morley. What do you mean? No, it was. You can't just say that. He clearly wasn't. Where he said, I've come to the conclusion that there's no optical. He didn't say I come to the conclusion that the one Michelson-Morley experiment doesn't show it. He said he came to the conclusion that there's no optical experiment that can prove it. Because you need to do that for relativity. Think of what relativity means. It means that you can't tell there's no absolute motion, so therefore you can't say one thing is orbiting something else, period. They can't even admit that. Because it would.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. It's
like with that one, so he is talking, he's given a speech in Japan, and he's talking in the context of what made him come up with relativity, and it was that he came across Michelson-Morley, and he's like, wow. So he started, that motivated him to come up with special relativity. And then, since that point, which was many years later, he had come to the conclusion that there's no optical experiment that can do it. So it's like, if you have basic reading comprehension, I was telling Kyle last night, they actually don't comprehend Einstein. So whether he was propped up or whatever, he does have intellectual depth in the principles he writes about. And frankly, it's just over a lot of people's heads, and they're no exception. They literally can't comprehend what Einstein's saying. So it's like,
but they just
I
figure
think it's
all
important that
scientists
we
believe
find
it,
out how
right?
to explain it.
But all scientists believe it, so therefore it must be true, and it must be, evidenced in every observation that we see, and every cell phone proves relativity.
Yeah, it's like flat earthers need to understand some of these basic principles, and just a rudimentary recap of the sequence of events, because this is what changed everything. This is where it all really it hit the rubber hit the road or whatever, right? Where it's like all of physics changed right here because they had to keep them.
There's some flat earthers that deny even that we should talk about Michelson-Morley at all.
Which is why I'm making it such a big point to talk about it in my debates now, because that's incredibly stupid.
It's ludicrous. It's one of the main tenets. And it's why physics has gone astray, really. I mean, if you think about it, when you have to make up things just like dark matter and dark energy, which is, again, something added that you would never do in real science, you would never do with the scientific method. You would never get to a point where observations no longer match your theory, and so you start making shit up. It just isn't the scientific method anymore. It's fallen apart. Well, that's all had to happen because they have to base things off of faulty foundations. So if you believe that we're spinning and doing all these things and that the stars are certain distances away, then yes, it's going to lead you to certain directions and certain beliefs and certain understandings that are just wrong. You're wrong from the get-go, And they can't see that because they're like, well, we would have never built on these ideas, these great ideas of these on the shoulders of giants, if they weren't correct. And that's just not the case. They have a worldview. They took their science in a worldview direction, which is always going to be a problem because you stop being unbiased. You stop being objective.
Used an extremely long,
Let me see where you,
strong magnetic field.
Yes, yeah. In my opinion, so that at first he's talking about the pendulum, and then I rebut the pendulum. Then I present my evidence. Then he attempts to rebut it, and then we go into open discussion. And then he brings up the pendulum, and then we talk about that for a few minutes, and then we get into the relativity.
So
and in
what
my opinion, like
what do you want to watch for today's show? I know we want.
Yeah, I would rather people just kind of see some of the relativity part.
Okay,
Maybe not. It might not be that far. I don't know. Actually, I have no idea.
I don't know either. I'll play
Maybe
and
like
you tell me, give me some idea where we're at.
Around the Earth, there would be a translation of motion to the Earth. Now, you want to say that it's because the Earth is spinning. And you don't understand that you're begging that question.
kinda good right here.
And then all you're actually manipulating is your position on this Earth by assuming it's spinning, causing the Coriolis. This is going to get very iterative, and this is like Flat Earth 101. So we can agree to disagree. You think that you prove the Earth is spinning by assuming that it's spinning.
Please don't strawman me.
You think you prove? Okay, you think that you established the Earth is spinning by assuming that the Earth is spinning. Okay, so now we can move on to my point that I want to talk about.
Well, I mean, again, you've just completely ignored how science works. But, if you want to change how science works, Witsit, that's absolutely fine. You do your own version of science. The rest of the world will actually do actual science, okay? That's
dark
fair.
matter, dark energy.
Yeah, because if you think that's what science is, then everyone can just make up any
That
idea.
actually is science.
So what you're saying is anyone can just make up any idea, and
Yeah,
then
absolutely.
if the observation
a hypothesis
matches.
can be whatever you want it to be. You can, as long as it's something
Oh,
that's
you're
testable,
unbearable, dude.
your hypothesis can literally be whatever you want it to be.
Okay, and so if you have an observation that you see, then you make up a hypothesis, and then the observation keeps happening. You say, "Look, it matches my hypothesis." Then you think that proves something without
Never
independently
said that.
manipulating
You
that
have to make a
variable. Your
prediction from your
independent variable
hypothesis.
is your presumed cause. Okay, because you have a cause and effect relationship test, right? You have an independent variable that allegedly causes the dependent variable, the observed phenomena. You have to manipulate that independent variable, that cause, to prove it actually causes the effect. You're not doing that. You're automatically starting with the presupposition that the difference on the position of the Earth is because the Earth is spinning. You already baked that
That's the
presupposition into
prediction,
it.
yes. That's the prediction, which is how science works. You make a prediction from your hypothesis and test your prediction. You don't specifically directly test your hypothesis. The IV and DV in your hypothesis are not going to be your IV and DV in your experiment. For instance, the IV and DV in your hypothesis, you can actually have multiple IV in your hypothesis, but your experiment can only have one. The problem here, Witsit, is you're mixing up a hypothesis and an experiment and kind of forgetting about the prediction part in between. That's fine. If you need to go back to high school and learn the high school level science before we have the conversation, that's absolutely up to you. But if you want to change how
Sorry,
science
you don't
works,
understand
that's
it.
fine.
It'll be okay. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
a hypothesis is a proposed cause and effect relationship test. You see an observation, you're like, hey, I wonder what causes this. You're like, you know what? I think this causes that effect. Then you go and test it by manipulating that presumed cause
Nope,
to show
you've
that it
missed
causes
a
the
step.
effect. And then you control other variables to make sure that you can isolate that one the best that you can. So agree to
just missed
disagree.
the
If you think
step.
that proves the Earth spins, please keep
No,
on saying that to all of your
Austin,
zealots
you've
in your
literally
chat.
just
I don't
missed
care.
the step in the scientific method, though. You skipped prediction. Why did you forget about that step?
The hypothesis involves a prediction.
No. Hypothesis and prediction are specifically different things. I can give you hundreds of citations for that. The hypothesis is not the prediction. They are separate things.
If you say, if this, then that, this causes that, and you're predicting that that is the cause of that, which means if you manipulate the cause, of course, science is qualitative, not quantitative, right? So if your prediction is quantitative, right, that's an after effect of you establishing a cause and effect relationship test. So agree to disagree, right? Now we can talk about your misunderstanding of Michelson-Morley, which I know you're terrified
No,
of.
I don't have any misunderstanding.
Oh, no, you do.
You're terrified of this. So you claim that it debunked the ether, right? Which is just so
absolutely.
laughable.
Yeah, that was the entire point of the experiment. The results said that basically there was no fringe shift detected. There was no aether wind as predicted. The only thing that they registered was within the margin of error of the equipment that they used. So yeah, it debunked the
Tesla
ether.
still talked about the ether,
actually,
even though
what
he
Michelson
lived
said.
after the Michelson-Morley experiment. So he wasn't convinced by it because he's still writing in his papers about the ether.
No, it's worse than that. That's not even what it showed. Like the only thing it would have done regarding the ether is show that the ether wasn't stationary. This dude's an idiot. He doesn't know. He has no idea what he's talking. Of course, Tesla didn't think that because that's not what it showed at all. Like he's stupid.
Yeah.
It's just a zealot talking point.
You think they're hearing it from somebody, or is that what's taught?
No, that's okay. If you go to Wikipedia, it basically says that. And then that's what they all have repeated. Every time a flat earther brings it up for the last 5 years, they say, that just debunked the ether. So they've heard FTFE say it, McToon say it. So they all just repeat it and repeat it.
Well, I can quote Wikipedia, therefore you're wrong.
Well, they're just dumb. You can read the paper. It's called Detecting the Motion of the Earth Through the Ether. Okay, so it's stupid. It shows that they don't understand it, which is why I think a lot of flat earthers don't fully understand it. And that's why I think stuff like this is important. I think they should.
So what do they think
it.
then? They think that an interferometer wouldn't measure the change, wouldn't measure that motion in a vacuum. Is that what they believe then? I'm confused.
Wouldn't measure what motion?
Our motion in orbit. Because I guess where I'm confused is if they're saying that it only proved there's no ether, that's like them saying that the Earth isn't moving through anything, and therefore you wouldn't be able to detect it.
Well, yeah, so they end up coming up with like this grasp at straws idea because I watched McToon and then they just came up with a new one. Like they watch me and they're still updating their position even though it's solid science for ever.
Thousands.
So they're like saying now you can't tell that the Earth is moving because you would have to be tidally locked to the Earth to be able to tell that it's moving or whatever. So, but he doesn't understand that Einstein took Lorentz contraction. It's called relativistic Lorentz contraction. It's literally still in relativity today. It's called relativistic contraction.
Right, which is the shortening of the arms and it's the changing of time.
Yeah, it's like an object in motion its length will shorten. You won't be able to tell.
Right. So if that didn't happen, what I'm saying is that they would then believe that the interferometer device, the beams of light would always be the same no matter which direction you were going or shooting the beams. They must think that. Because otherwise,
it would look that way.
It would
always
look that way. Right.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue.
Was that the conclusions exclude the idea of a stationary ether? Okay, but this is the action, and you want to leave that part out. But of course, it was an attempt to detect the motion of the Earth through the ether. So then there was a predicted value as to what would be seen, and of course that was not observed. Now, Einstein explains that he came up with special relativity in response to Michelson-Morley to explain the results. And then that's what led him to eventually claim that time slowed down and physically expanded and dilated, slowed down, and that the measuring apparatus contracted. Okay, so that's why he came up with that, was to explain why, even though the one path that the light, quote unquote, traveled was longer, and therefore it was a greater distance, so it took longer to travel that greater distance because it's going against the motion of the Earth. It didn't show that, so it's because actually, even though it did travel further, the apparatus shrank, so it looks like it's the same. And even though it did take longer to go further, time slowed down to make it look like it didn't take longer. And that is, to this day, the very belief you have to hold to believe the Earth is a spinning ball using relativity.
Right, okay, you notice how I let you talk for a long time there and didn't cry about it. But so no, that's not actually what Einstein said. I would need the direct citation from you. When Einstein's talking about length contraction, he specifically, can do the maths and everything as well. So if we're talking about the length contraction of the equipment that was used, you know how long the arms were of the Michelson-Morley equipment? Do you know how many meters they were?
I don't care.
Well, you should, because it's kind of important to your entire point, Whitset. That's the thing. They were 11 meters long. And do you know the equation for length contraction, Whitset?
Instead of you detracting, will you respond to the actual point that you have to believe that's time?
Okay, stop.
Yeah, you got gotchas. You're not going to give me. I'm not going to play your game.
Specific questions. So if you could just stop dancing around. So do you know? I'm just asking. Do you know the equation for length contraction, Whitset?
Yeah, and that's irrelevant.
Okay, what's the equation for length contraction?
It's irrelevant to the actual point. Hey, as soon as you address my actual point instead of diverting
I am addressing your point.
I
am addressing your point. If you let me get there,
dude, I watched you read the equation off in your opener, dude. Stop pretending you're some mathematical
you watched
genius.
Me read the equation off. I literally just said it.
You.
Look, watch me right now. I'm not looking at anything. Right.
Watch. He ends up looking down.
L which is the length contraction, equals LO, which is the original length of the thing, times the square root of 1 minus
He's looking
v
at it
squared,
now.
which is the v is the velocity of the object,
Yeah.
over c squared, which is the speed of light. I didn't
Wrong.
read that off of anything. I
That's
studied
wrong.
that earlier and paid attention to it.
You're wrong. You said it wrong.
I just read it,
no, I
and because
didn't.
I can read it and you haven't memorized it, you're wrong.
Right.
Now, see,
That's
I
all
was
argument.
wrong here because, like, when you look at the length contraction and the measured length of an object relative to the frame, it's L equals LO times the square root of 1 minus v squared times c squared equals LOY. And so that's where I was thinking it was v squared c squared, but then when you actually take the factor out and apply it, then it's v squared over c squared. But anyway. But yeah, it's like just like what you said. He's like trying to detract away to the equation because he can't address the point.
Right.
Which
Just
bit
said
did I
v
say
squared
wrong?
over c squared?
V squared over c squared, yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, v squared over c squared.
Pretty sure it's v squared times c squared.
No, it's v squared over c squared.
Maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
so-
definitey is. So, okay,
Okay,
so
cool.
You,
Now, okay,
So
cool.
Now,
You know
now,
the equation.
Now,
You know the
now is
equation.
my point. Now is where I can actually get to where I was going with this. So
You're not gonna
now
address
that we
the point.
know what the equation is, if we plug in the numbers for how fast the Earth is moving and the original length of the equipment, then what we actually find is the length contraction would only be 55 nanometers, which is 1/1000th the width of a human hair.
Austin, you want to address your friend Bryant over here? He's on your lap.
He was in the chat.
Yeah. Just he says, no, Lorentz ether, you claimed that things physically contract to remove fringes is wrong. Lorentz ether debunked by Kennedy Thorndike, Einstein's works.
Yeah, this Mr. Professor, he doesn't understand like anything. I was wanting to maybe like destroy him in a debate. He should have to debate me just about relativity, but I will address it. So like, yeah, I say this in the debate too. You should watch him and McToon talk about it. He's so nervous and it's so funny. But anyway, Lorentz proposed the contraction trying to explain an ether, right? Trying to explain Michelson-Morley and keep the ether. Einstein took that math and then threw out the ether, but still applied it to Michelson-Morley to explain the results. When he's talking about Kennedy Thorndike, what they did was they tried to prove that it actually does shorten the length of the arms, and then they proposed a whole new electrodynamics framework, and then they didn't detect anything. They didn't detect any contraction. The fact that Baller would ever bring up that they did an experiment where they didn't detect contraction is hilarious. But yeah, no one's claiming the version that Lorentz. I'm not claiming any of the contraction is real because I'm not a psychopath. So I'm pointing out that Lorentz proposed the ether contraction, and Einstein took that same math and same principle of contraction and threw out the ether, but still worked it into relativity to explain Michelson-Morley. So he just doesn't understand it. The base, he just doesn't understand. Like you should just Google it. Debunk flat Earth over here. You should just Google it. Google relativistic contraction. Objects, the matter of objects shorten their length when in motion, according to your religion.
Okay, we'll continue here.
That is not going to change the result with the magnitude that you require it to of. That's practically imperceivable. So no, your argument about length contraction causing the result is wrong because the math of length contraction disagrees with you.
Okay, now this is objective, and I encourage. Now, what you'll see is the FTFE will just deny it. So I'm not trying to wake up the zealots that you modded the most toxic people I've ever seen in my entire life in your chat. I'm trying to wake up the audience, okay? In case you don't know. You just go research it. You won't get the truth from FTA. This is objective. That Einstein said that the reason we did not get the predicted value is because there's supposed to be a phase shift. The light is supposed to be behind the other light. We didn't see that. So he claimed that the measuring apparatus physically contracted and time slowed down. Any attempt to use measuring rods or clocks to detect the motion of the Earth around the sun is a futile pursuit because of this illusion that takes place. So would you like to admit that relativity claims you cannot prove the Earth is moving around the Earth from the Earth because time slows down and matter contracts?
No, absolutely not, because the amount that time slows down and matter contracts is practically imperceivable. So much so that the equations, when you use relativistic speeds to versus non-relativistic equations, actually give the same result. So no, relativity doesn't say that. And in fact, you can specifically measure the orbit of the Earth around the sun using relativistic Doppler measurements. And, you know, I specifically got the paper for that earlier, so I can actually pass you that paper to have a look at, showing that, you know, the orbit around the sun matches what we say it to. It is actually the Earth moving and nothing else, based on, you know, spectroscopy and Doppler measurements of distant things. So you can use relativity to show that the Earth is orbiting around the sun. What you cannot use, which is what Einstein was talking about, is the Michelson-Morley experiment, the results of the Michelson-Morley experiment, or any experiment like the Michelson-Morley experiment. That is the only thing that Einstein was talking about. He never spoke about anything else. And when he said that, it was 10 to 15 years before the Michelson-Gale-Pierce experiment, which verified a lot of things from the Michelson-Morley experiment. So no, Whitsitt, you are completely wrong.
Wow. That goes to show you literally don't understand anything, because Michelson-Gale-Pearson is about sidereal rotation. It literally has nothing to do with Michelson-Morley trying to detect the orbit. Secondly, he's giving a speech talking about what made him come up with special relativity. He says Michelson-Morley in '87 is what started it, right? And then he came up with special relativity, which was like 18 years later or whatever, right? And so he came up with the idea that time that matter contracts. He actually didn't come up with it. Lorentz did. He stole it and threw out the ether. Then he said time expands. Now that's one quote where he says no optical experiment can detect the motion of the Earth around the sun. And he has another quote explaining that to the question whether or not the motion of the Earth in space can be made perceptible in terrestrial experiments, we have already remarked that all attempts of this nature led to a negative result, all of them. And before the theory of relativity was put forward, it was difficult to become reconciled to this negative result. So, if you understand that, what was it about relativity that reconciled the negative results?
It allowed them to remove the aether and, you know, have relativistic calculations able to explain things. That was it.
No, it's literally not the answer. See if you can try again. It's
you
not
also
that they
kind of
removed.
strawmanned me a little bit when you were talking there. I didn't say that the Michelson-Gale and the Michelson-Morley experiment were the same. I said some things from the Michelson-Gale-Pearson experiment verified some of the things from the Michelson-Morley experiment. And, you know, that was years after Einstein said what he said about not being able to detect the motion of the Earth.
All right, let's see if you can try again. So, what was it about relativity specifically that allowed them to become reconciled with the negative result of all terrestrial experiments that attempted to detect the motion of the Earth around the sun?
Well, it's the fact that relativity gives us the position of not knowing if it's us or something else moving from, you know, a reference frame point of view. That's
Why?
it.
Why?
Because you need other things to be able to determine that. That's it. That's why we use other things as well. We don't just use relativity, but we can actually use relativistic effects to still measure the orbit of the Earth around the sun.
You just say use other things?
Yes, we can use other things as well as relativity. We don't just have to
so you
use
don't understand
relativity.
it. You literally don't understand it. So the reason, I'll help you out here. The reason...
What did you say? Oh, sorry.
I've already told you the answer, though. But the reason is that relativity claims that time expands and that matter contracts relative to its motion. So any attempt to detect the motion of the Earth using any measuring apparatus comprised of matter within space, and so using any distance or any attempt to use anything involving time, will show you a result that looks like the Earth is stationary, because time slows down when in motion and the matter contracts when in motion. That is how relativity reconciled the negative results.
No, again, you're mixing up things and talking about relativistic speeds when there is no relativistic speeds. The Earth doesn't have relativistic speeds. The contraction and the time dilation on Earth is going to be so minimal that it's not going to affect the equipment in the way that you are saying. Einstein didn't use those words that you are saying in the context that you are saying that he did. Just like you misquote everything that Stephen Hawking was saying in the foreword of the anthology book, you're taking it out of context and putting it into something that it's not actually talking about.
I know you're trying desperately to divert away from how the whole audience sees you literally don't understand what's going on right now. But the truth is, no, you didn't. You said you can use other things when I asked you how does it explain it? How does it reconcile it? Einstein explains very specifically, right, that every attempt terrestrially, now, so not just Michelson-Morley, you claimed only Michelson-Morley and things like that. No, anything on the Earth. Okay, and he explains that relativity reconciled that every terrestrial experiment attempting to detect the motion of the Earth was negative by introducing time dilation and Lorentz contraction. And it said that the measuring apparatus of Michelson-Morley actually shrank. So even though the light did have to travel further, what you were measuring the distance with shrank, so you couldn't tell that it traveled further. And the time you were using, the clock you were using to measure the time it took to go further, slowed down so that you couldn't tell it took longer. This is basic relativity 101.
Okay, well, it's not, because you didn't listen to what I said. The actual maths of length contraction disagree with you. Why is it the actual maths of length contraction disagree with your claim?
How so? Are you saying that length contraction wasn't applied to the measuring apparatus?
I'm saying that I told you specifically how much the length contraction is. It is 55 nanometers.
Because I said they disagree. That's exactly what he's saying.
What he doesn't understand, right, is like to make his argument, he would have to do that math and then do the math of what the light should been behind, and then compare the two and see what the difference is. He just did half of it because DFE sent it to him. Thought he had some home run because, frankly, bro, you can be a professor and be very incompetent nowadays. Right? So he doesn't actually know what he's saying, but he gets pretty exposed on this point in a second. I mean, it's just really crazy. You see what I'm saying? He's saying, no, it only changes like the fraction of the width of a hair, right? So no. Well, yeah, light is super fast. Light is super fast, and the difference in the light would be very, very small, right? So that's the whole point. Is like it was come up with to explain why the light wasn't far enough behind.
He says they are not equal. Things physically contracting is not the same as things contracting in a frame in relative motion to you.
Yeah, what he doesn't understand and what he's trying to say is that it's different, but what relativity says is you won't be able to detect it shortening in your frame. Not that it doesn't happen, right? It's that you wouldn't be able to detect it within your own frame. So basically it's like, oh, it's going to look like it's the same distance because you're in your frame because of relativity, but actually it's shortened. You just can't tell. That's how they explained away Michelson-Morley. He literally doesn't comprehend it, and he's spending money to show everyone that.
How much the 11-meter arms of the Michelson-Morley experiment contracted by? 55 nanometers. That's it.
Okay, how much was the light supposed to be behind the other light?
How much was the light supposed to be behind the other light? Well, I'm talking about how much the actual apparatus contracted. 55
Wait, how do you know it contracted?
Nanometers. That's it. If we're using the maths of length contraction, right? We're saying that the length contracts based on relativistic effects. Then you follow through the maths, and it shows that the length contraction of the arms of the Michelson-Morley experiment would have been 55 nanometers.
So why did he have to apply that math to the measuring apparatus?
He didn't. That's my point. The measuring apparatus would have contracted by such a small amount. This is the maths that Einstein gave us for the length contraction. The maths alone disagrees with you. When you do the math,
no, you're just saying that. Wait, why?
I'm not just saying that. I literally did the maths to verify something earlier that I was told. I did the maths myself to verify something that I was told by somebody else. The maths of length contraction.
You were told by Debunk Flat Earth, DFT. I know who you were told by, right? My other fanboy. But this is not relevant because what you're saying is
it is relevant.
How do you know that it contracted? You said, oh, that's what the math predicts. So you didn't know. Right? The math was just applied to it and it was assumed. You can't measure that difference. You didn't measure that it contracted. You just assumed it, applied the math to it. So any logical person knows, well, then why did Einstein say that you had to apply that math to it and claim that it contracted? The actual answer is because the predicted value wasn't seen and observed, which means that to claim the light traveled further going against the motion of the Earth but wasn't being able to be measured was because the apparatus contracted just enough to make it look like it was the same. Why else would he apply that math to the apparatus?
Again, 55 nanometers, Austin. 55 nanometers over 11 meters. That is the contraction. That does
You're not answering the question.
I am answering the question. That does not.
Why did he
account.
apply the math to the apparatus?
But he didn't apply the math to the apparatus.
Whoa!
That's
so you're
the thing.
saying that
that's the thing. When you actually apply the math,
doesn't mean the yardstick is 4 feet long.
The math applied to the apparatus right here. I've done it myself. Right? I verified what I was told. So the math applied to the apparatus shows a contraction so small it would not make any difference. 1/1000th the width of a human hair. Your claim is that length contraction is happening. If you use the math of length contraction, it shows it doesn't make a difference.
So why was it applied to the apparatus?
It wasn't, because it didn't make a difference.
Dude, you just don't understand it. Okay, so this is what happened was Lorentz came up with a Lorentz contraction, but he assumed there was an ether causing it to contract the matter. Einstein took the Lorentz contraction math, but threw out the ether. And then what he said was, this is because of Michelson-Morley. Einstein explains it in his speech. The reason he came up with special relativity was because of Michelson-Morley. Special relativity claims that matter contracts and time expands and slows down. So if Einstein said the reason that I came up with special relativity, which says that time slows down and matter contracts, is because of Michelson-Morley, can you explain to the audience what that means?
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah. So Einstein absolutely said that, the Michelson-Morley experiment, the results of that is what led me to my conclusions about special relativity.
Okay.
But he did not say that it's because the time dilates and length contracts. That's not why that led him to that. You're just conflating the two. Nowhere did he actually say that the results of the Michelson-Morley experiment led me to special relativity because length contraction and time dilation explains what's happening. Nowhere did he say that, and I challenge you to give me a citation of him actually saying that.
Yeah, so where did Einstein get the Lorentz contraction from?
I don't know exactly where he got. I imagine from Lorentz.
Okay, why did Lorentz propose the Lorentz contraction?
To explain relativistic effects.
In what? No.
In whatever needs it to be explained. That's why the length contraction equation has both the contracted length and the original length.
No, he proposed Lorentz.
Oh, sorry, I keep thinking that's awesome.
Proposed the Lorentz contraction to explain the Michelson-Morley experiment.
Again, the length contraction of the Michelson-Morley experiment is so small as to be imperceivable. You are mixing up things.
Okay, so
I need,
because the light doesn't change much.
I need citations.
Right? You're lost, but the light doesn't change much.
I'm not lost. I've actually done the maths, and it debunks your claim with it. The math itself.
So we talking? I don't know why I keep hearing things.
Of length contraction debunks your claim. I want a citation.
Why did Lorentz propose the Lorentz contraction?
I would like a citation that the Lorentz contraction was specifically because of the Michelson-Morley experiment. I would also like a citation of Einstein saying that it was specifically because of length contraction and time dilation that we got the results of the Michelson-Morley experiment.
Okay,
frankly,
and you're going to publicly admit to your whole audience once I provide it to you.
I think you are making up those quotes because they are not the things that Einstein said. And the maths of length, you need to listen to this bit. The maths of length contraction debunks your claim.
No, it doesn't. That's why I asked you specifically, well, how much would the light be off via phase shift, and how's that compared to the distance measured by the apparatus if you apply the Lorentz contraction? And you said, I don't know.
It would be a lot more.
Oh, really? It'd be a lot more. Really?
It would be a lot more than 55 nanometers. I don't know exactly how much, but it would be a lot more than 55 nanometers, yes.
Really? How much more would it be?
I don't know the exact amount. I'd have to do the maths.
So how do you know it would be a lot more then?
Because the ratios are much higher. The numbers that involved straight away are much higher. It's the
what are those numbers?
55 nanometers over 11 meters is not going to explain the difference of light traveling at 300,000 miles per 300,000 kilometers per second. The maths of that don't match up. I would have to do the exact maths, but no, the 55 nanometers does not explain the actual results of the Michelson-Morley experiment. They do not
so I'll
reconcile
have to fact
one
check
with
your
the other.
numbers. I'd have to fact check your numbers, but this is the problem, right? You're just objectively wrong. Lorentz writes in detail that the reason he came up with the Lorentz contraction is to explain the Michelson-Morley experiment and how there wasn't the predicted value of phase shift or fringe shift between the two different paths of light, because one of them was going against the assumed 20 mile a second orbit of the Earth around the sun. Okay, so he came up with an idea to explain how it was that you didn't get the difference predicted. He came up with Lorentz contraction. He claimed the ether contracted the matter. Okay, then Einstein took the Lorentz contraction from Lorentz, but he threw the ether out. He actually didn't even offer a specific mechanism. And he took the math, and then he used that to explain Michelson-Morley, which is what he's explaining in his speech as to why he came up with special relativity in the first place.
Yeah, but the Lorentz transformation is to do with the assumption of there being aether, but there was no aether. There was no medium for that to happen. Einstein didn't need to propose a medium. He was just saying, well, this happens based on what we expect the maths to be. You know, there wasn't...
What?
There wasn't... Einstein, he never proposed a medium
Quotations
for these things to
from
happen. He
Einstein
just
right
said,
now.
well, this is what the maths of
We need those immediately. Let's keep going.
relativity shows we expect to happen. Right? Whereas
Dude, he integrated the math into relativity because that observation had to be explained. So where was his evidence that matter contracted?
It was theoretical. It always was theoretical.
Based on what? Based on what?
Based on maths.
No, it was based on the Michelson-Morley.
Yeah, the maths of what came out of it and the way to explain what was going on. But the actual contraction of the matter is so small that it wouldn't have affected the results of the Michelson-Morley experiment. Again, 55 nanometers is not going to change the shift, the amount of distance the light has to travel and the time that it takes to travel, and exactly match. That doesn't correlate. You know, I'm going to have to do the exact maths to show that, just like I verified the maths earlier of the length contraction of the arms. But the fact is, the length contraction of the arms is 55 nanometers, which is not going to change the things that you need them to change.
Yeah, light is quantified in a very, very small scale. I'm guessing that you're lost, but what you won't do is you won't do a stream tomorrow and admit to your whole audience that you were wrong about all your claims tonight. I can guarantee that. This is James Coleman, professor of physics, explaining the very thing you're claiming in Relativity for the Layman. The explanation which had the most appeal in accounting for the negative result of Michelson-Morley's experiment was one that was literally dreamed up for that purpose. It's the so-called Fitzgerald-Lorentz contraction. So it was literally invented to explain the Michelson-Morley results. Einstein took that same mechanism to explain Michelson-Morley results, but threw the ether out, did not provide a different mechanism. And then to explain the actual phase shift that was detected, he said that it was instrumental error.
No, he didn't say instrumental error. He said margin of error.
Based on the instruments.
Yeah, every instrument has every single instrument in the world has a margin of error. You know,
and why does it only vary relative to a certain direction and not in all directions?
The margin of error of the equipment will only be able to measure certain things.
But why was the phase shift only directed in a certain or detected in a certain direction and not all?
Because of the arms. That was what you were trying to do. But what you're failing to realize is that the much more accurate Michelson-Morley type experiments have been done to verify even further and further the conclusions that we've got. And it all shows that the Earth is the thing that is moving. There is no aether, no magic medium that is transmitting light. And length
what you're saying that the repeated
is relativistic, right?
You're saying the repeated results show, so the repeated Michelson-Morley experiments show that it is the Earth that is moving? Is that what you just said?
I'm saying no, it's part of the thing that we can use to verify it.
How so?
Because we can look at the results of that and compare it with everything else, like the other.
But the claim is that it doesn't detect the motion, though.
Yeah. So what we do is we look at the results in the Michelson-Morley experiment, right, and we compare them to all the other experiments that we've done, and then you can, that explains that if the Earth is moving, well, that explains those results. It matches what you get from all the other measurements and experiments that you do. When you put them all together, you get a conclusive overall picture. All right, I'm not saying that the Michelson-Morley experiment on its own shows that the Earth's moving. No, absolutely not. You know, that's not my claim.
It has nothing to do with that.
My claim is that you can use the results in the Michelson-Morley experiment along with lots of other experiments and stuff that we've got to determine that the Earth is in fact moving.
No, it has nothing to do with that. Einstein says you cannot use terrestrial experiments or observations to prove the Earth is moving from the Earth, and it can all be adequately explained from the geocentric position. You can use a neotectonic system to explain parallax, retrograde, and all kinds of other things. But the point is that they then went and so you don't know what you're talking about with that. I encourage you to go do the math and look at the difference in the light. You'll find out it does directly and exactly match the Lorentz contraction math, and that's why it was proposed. And then they went and did Michelson-Gale-Pearson in 1935, and they got the predicted value of sidereal rotation within 98% accuracy every single time. So my question for you is, if we use the same methodology of interferometry to try to detect the orbit of the Earth moving around the sun at 20 miles a second, and then we use the same exact methodology of interferometry to detect the sidereal rotation, how come we were able to detect the sidereal rotation but not the orbit?
It depends on the sensitivity of the equipment.
So allegedly the Earth orbits around the sun just under 20 miles a second.
Yeah.
And the Michelson-Morley was sensitive enough to detect as low as 2 miles a second.
So it's sorry, I've got a quote here that I'm just looking at my notes from earlier. So bear with me just 1 second.
He's all tripped up from here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I want to get the correct thing to make sure that I've said it right.
This is the funniest part, in my opinion. Once he says the next thing.
Yeah, it's funny.
While you guys have a quick pause, we got about 7 minutes left. Yeah. Open Q&A. If you guys want to extend it from there, you can both agree to, or we can go to questions after that.
Where is it?
Well, he's so adamant and so matter of fact about what he says, even when he's blatantly wrong, that I could see how,
his audience believes everything.
Yeah, they just
exactly.
Yeah, he's very good at believing right and putting that out to his audience.
Yeah, if you say something convincingly enough, like people will believe almost anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you take the position of the person you're against is an idiot and you're smart, it's just very easy because anything that you say, you're coming from that position, they'll just make fun of you. Oh, you're going to bring that up again. Oh, you always do that. And then your audience is just going to believe you. I'll keep going. I think we're almost there.
Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. You interrupted me there, Shane. What was I looking for? What's it?
Yeah, so my question is, you said, first of all, it depends on the sensitivity of the apparatus, but the apparatus was sensitive enough to detect 2 miles a second when they claim the Earth's orbiting 20 miles a second. And the question is, if we were using interferometry in Michelson-Gale-Pearson and it matches the prediction of sidereal rotation within 98% accuracy every time, then how come the same methodology of interferometry doesn't detect the orbit?
Right, so in orbit, there's no centrifugal acceleration measurable because the centrifugal acceleration in the reference frame and the orbiting body is cancelled by gravity exactly, or vice versa, at each molecule, ignoring the very tiny tidal effects. So there's no net acceleration that exists in the reference frame, aka you're weightless, which means that you...
See how they just believe that? What he just read, he just believes. Just stated, even though what he just read is wrong. Let's go back a little bit.
Each molecule ignoring the very tiny. In orbit, there's no centrifugal acceleration measurable because the centrifugal acceleration in the reference frame and the orbiting body is cancelled by gravity exactly, or vice versa, at each molecule, ignoring the very tiny tidal effects. So there's no net acceleration that exists in the reference frame, aka you're weightless, which means that you need something that isn't directly on the Earth to be able to measure the motion of the Earth, if you know what I mean. So
then we've come full circle to you conceding that you have to be off the Earth to actually detect the motion of the Earth around the sun. And you just claimed earlier and last time that we spoke that you can use a gyro on the Earth to do it. And now your quote actually refutes that position.
Well, I'm not claiming that right now. The gyro that would measure it wouldn't actually be on the Earth. You would need it to be tidally locked to the sun, moving at the same speed as Earth. But that's why I then referred to the measurements of Doppler, the relativistic Doppler measurements are using radio horn telescopes to measure the orbit of the Earth around the sun.
So you're now
that's using
conceding that
relativity.
that your first claim that you can use a gyro to detect the orbit around the sun from the Earth is incorrect.
Well, I never specifically said it was on the Earth. I just said
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't. I never specifically said it was on the Earth. I just said that type of equipment would be able to detect it.
No, you claimed that papers that proved that it had been detected
I
already.
talked to him the day before. I talked to him the day before, and he said that you can use a gyro to detect the 15 degrees per hour, and it detects an additional degree per day. That's the orbit that it's detecting. And I asked for the paper, and he's like, "Oh, I have to find it," and he never got it. And now he's come full circle in this debate where he refutes his own position and says it's impossible.
So he believes that if we got into a plane and flew for 1,000 miles, that the gyroscope itself would be still rigid in space from where we left. Is that what he thinks?
I don't know exactly, to be honest. Like what he's saying is that he's claimed that you use a gyro on the Earth and it detects the 15 degrees per hour, but it also will detect an additional degree per day because we're going around the sun. So you can use a gyroscope to detect the orbit around the sun.
Yeah.
He actually said that.
Receipts, please.
Yeah, exactly. And now he's, of course, refuting his own position.
Trying to find the paper is from 1951, and it's called Large Area Interferometric Measurements of Earth's Orbit Around the Sun. I'm trying to locate that specific paper. But
that paper would be in direct
said that
contradiction to relativity.
I never said that it was a gyroscope that was on the Earth. I
So it
just
was in
said that
space?
you could use that type of instrumentation to measure the 1 degree orbit around the Earth, but you would need to be specific circumstances, like it would need to be tidally locked so that it would cancel out the rotation of the Earth and things like that.
Well,
But,
it would need to be outside of the
I've got many
Earth's
papers
orbit.
that I can show you to show it, but I've never.
It would have to be outside of
I've
the
never
Earth's orbit.
disagreed that from the Earth it's hard to detect the motion of the Earth because there's actually no way to detect velocity as such. That you can't. Acceleration is something you can detect. Velocity is something that you measure by other means. So you have to have specific circumstances to actually be able to measure velocity. You need a reference to something else, right?
Well, you're saying that, but you then invoke the same device that actually detects acceleration. So you're now, it's cool. You should have conceded that already. That paper on its face is automatically wrong within your paradigm because it directly contradicts relativity. And the claim of relativity is not that it's difficult, it's that it's impossible to detect the Earth's motion around the sun from the Earth.
No, he was only talking about the Mux-Morley experiment. He wasn't talking about anything else.
He says any terrestrial experiment.
Yeah, talking about the Mux-Morley experiments. That's
No, that's the optical experiment quote.
Yeah, he's specifically talking about the MMX type experiments. That's it.
No, he's not. So he has a quote in context talking about Michelson-Morley where he says, Michelson-Morley made me come up with special relativity, and since then I've come to the conclusion that there's no optical experiment that can do it. He has another quote that says that no terrestrial experiment can detect the motion of the Earth around the sun.
Yeah, so
no
something
terrestrial, meaning nothing on the Earth.
So something on the Earth, which is something that I've never argued with. That's why I say there's other ways to detect it.
So then you can see that you cannot prove the Earth is moving around the sun from the Earth.
Standing on the Earth, it's very hard to detect that the Earth is moving. You have to reference
if I was
other
floating a
things.
foot above it, I could detect it?
If you are away from the Earth and tidally locked to the sun, at moving at the same speed as the Earth, you will be able to measure that rotation.
What?
If you're moving at the same speed as the Earth, so we have to go out into space, okay? Yeah. So because our mass would tidally lock to the sun, we would have to have
I've never said that. Oh well, you have to be on the Earth to measure it. I've always shown. When I talk about the measurements of the Earth orbiting around the sun, it's always in reference to other things. But that's all so kind of irrelevant to my entire argument. My entire argument wasn't about the Earth orbiting around the sun. My entire argument was the fact that we can detect that the Earth itself is rotating and that it's a rotating sphere based on the vectors of forces.
Yeah, but this is the point that this reason is important because relativity is to this day that's still the same glue that is for your framework that it previously was, right? It's still and this is what Einstein's explaining is he's looking at the two options: is the Earth at rest and geocentric, or is the Earth spinning and revolving around the sun in heliocentric model, right? Because the spinning and revolving is a package deal. So he knows that there's sidereal rotation, but the claim is the sky moving around us or is the Earth moving? So in order to prove that, to distinguish between the two, we need to go look and see if we can detect the motion of the Earth around the sun. Because if we can do that, that will give us our answer to the previous question of what is the cause of sidereal rotation. That's why he's explaining after it was all said and done, he admits, oh, well, technically, you could interchange these two positions. The Earth could be stationary at rest and geocentric, or it could be spinning and revolving around the sun, and it would be the same according to relativity.
Right. Again, none of that is relevant to the things that I brought up in my arguments. You can argue. You can none of it's relevant to the arguments that I brought up. To the measurement of Earth's rotation with a pendulum, to the measurements of Earth's rotation with a magnetically levitated plastic ball having Coriolis forces applied to it. That there's so many ways to determine that the Earth is the thing that's moving. From a fiber optic gyroscope, that we all know that Bob used to measure a rotation. There's no way that could measure anything other than the thing that it's on. It can't measure the sky. There's no mechanism for it to measure the sky moving.
Well, you're making claims now. You're claiming that you know that there's no way something could happen, but there actually is, right? And even Einstein, that's why I brought up Einstein, but you'd have to be competent enough to understand the intellectual depth of the reason I invoked it. You strawmanned me as if I was claiming something I wasn't. I wasn't claiming that Einstein was claiming the Earth is stationary or anything like that. What I was claiming was that the principle that Einstein himself stamped, he said that in order for relativity to work, I have to concede that this principle is true. And that's the Machian principle, right? Mach's principle. And he wrote this in a letter in 1913 to Ernst Mach. That's the reason it's invoked, is for the principle. If there was a medium to exchange the motion, there would be a translation of motion from the exterior of the system to the Earth. And this is why in my actual presentation, I show the toroid, the movement, the translations of the movement, and what would explain this vortex movement. Right? So you're just claiming that it wouldn't explain it, but it would. Even Einstein himself said you would have a translation of motion that would cause Coriolis and centrifugal effects that were actual.
But he also said that they would be so small as to be practically unmeasurable. So
that's right. When he said
they
that,
cannot explain the forces that we have. And no, he wasn't talking about it being infinitely far away. He was simply talking about a shell of M mass rotating around a concentric body inside it. And
right, but he's talking
saying that would impart Coriolis forces, but they would be infinitely small. No matter how close that shell was to the surface, the forces, there's no, the forces that would be imparted.
Does he not understand Mach's principle at all?
To be immeasurable. That is his own words.
No. Well, it's not as much about the distance, it's about the medium. So he is talking within the paradigm of relativity and a vacuum assumed. Now, of course, the distance and the medium or lack thereof are interchangeable, right? In a way, they're a package deal because if the stars are actually as far away as they claim, it has to be within a vacuum. So he's saying that in this assumption, like it's unspoken, he just believed it to be true, right? Which is that the stars are very far away and it's within a vacuum. Then the translation of motion in that scenario would be so minuscule you'd barely detect it, but it would drag the pendulum around. Now, I'm just invoking the principle that even relativity has to concede because I'm using a hostile witness to hold your feet to the fire where you have to concede that relativity claims actually if the sky's moving around the Earth and if they were more local in a more dense medium or there was a medium of exchange like an ether or something like that, it would cause a Coriolis and centrifugal effect that would be absolute.
Okay, he never claimed that an ether would cause a Coriolis effect. I don't know where you got that from. No, you just said that it would be an ether or something that would be causing the Coriolis effect. That was your literal words.
I didn't say he said that.
Well, what would be in the medium then?
Well, now I can come up with my own opinion, but the point is that you should be conceding that relativity necessitates that you concede the validity and the principle of Machian motion. Like you have to concede that relativity, according to Einstein, says that the Machian principle is true and that it must be true for relativity to work and for you to invoke the Arthur Eddington experiment.
I've already said that I agree with the principle that you can't determine, what it is from the position that you're on, but that's why we use other things than just relativity. We use relativity, and then we look at it within the confines of everything else we know about science and physics, and we use that to
What an
determine,
idiot, dude.
the motion of the
God.
Earth around the sun.
Well, we're also talking about rotation right then, right? So it seems like we're maybe not okay. We're kind of talking past each other. So the Machian principle letter is about sidereal rotation.
Yeah.
Right. So we have solar rotation, sidereal rotation. There's like a 4-minute difference, right? Your model claims that it's because the angle of view to the sun is different than the angle of view to the stars much further away. That's why we have a difference. Blah blah blah. I could destroy that, but we're not talking about that. The point is that's sidereal rotation. We've already destroyed the orbit, right? Like relativity says you cannot prove the Earth is moving around the sun from the Earth. You should trash the argument about the gyroscope, and then we'll move on. Now, as it pertains to sidereal rotation, it's important because in the context of relativity, Einstein explains that we must concede that the Machian principle that Mach was once ridiculed for, as he explains in the letter, is actually true. Because if it's not true, then I cannot propose relativity, and we cannot use this eclipse observation to try to validate relativity. I must concede this translation of motion principle. So I'm asking you to just concede the principle, not the specifics of it yet. And once you concede the principle, we could get into the specifics, but you should concede that relativity dictates you acknowledge the validity of the principle of the Machian principle.
It's irrelevant to my arguments, all of it. That's why
it's not.
It is. It's all irrelevant to my arguments because there's because I've got so many different ways of showing that there's forces being applied that it can't just be down to one medium because there's so many.
But that's what the
different ways
Machian
of doing
principle
it.
says, my brother. That's the point. Machian principle says there will be an application of forces that are centrifugal and Coriolis. In
But it
nature,
also
like,
says that
so
it will
everything
be
you use to detect that
imperceptibly
is
small.
going to still be addressed.
It literally says it will be imperceptibly small, and it won't explain the forces that we actually experience on Earth.
But I've already rebutted that and
No, you
explained
haven't.
that
You haven't. He literally says the words, but it will be imperceptibly small. They're so small as to be practically unmeasurable. That does not explain the forces that we have on Earth. The forces that we have on Earth are explained by the heliocentric model. It's predicted by the heliocentric model. It matches what the heliocentric model says should be. But there's no explanation for them in the other way with a plausible mechanism and maths behind it to show that it is the case. You would need to show your working and show your math to show that the Machian principle says that would be able to put those forces on it.
Okay, what you're not understanding, I'm going to try to say it one more time. Einstein's writing that letter from the context of relativity. Now, relativity claims there is no ether, there is no medium, that space is a vacuum, and that it's effectively Newtonian emptiness outside the material world except for space and time, right, which have physical properties but are not mechanical. So that's what he's writing from within that context. And he's saying, so, applying this context, you wouldn't really be able to detect it. The motion would be very small. But he's still acknowledging the principle. Now, I'm not absorbing the claim that the ether doesn't exist and that there's only space and time within Newtonian emptiness that have no mechanical properties and can't have motion applied to it, and that the stars are trillions of miles away. I'm not absorbing that position, right? I'm saying that the principle that even Einstein acknowledged is true, and that would explain, with a more local system and with the medium that exchanges the motion, it would explain why we have centrifugal and Coriolis effects on a stationary Earth.
I mean, you're making that claim, but there's no maths to back that up.
Well, sure, I could maybe work out the math, but you can acknowledge the principle, right? Can you acknowledge the principle?
No, the principle doesn't match because the forces imparted would not match the forces that we actually have on Earth. That's the point.
To get those numbers...
That's why Einstein said that it would be so small.
But to get those numbers, we have to have the distance to the objects, the mass of the objects, and the medium that they're in. That's the only way we could come up with those numbers. So when you claim that the prediction doesn't match, I haven't provided a prediction. I'm asking you to be intellectually honest and admit that relativity via Einstein's letter dictates you admit the principle of Machian motion is valid.
I never denied it. That's the thing.
Okay, so then you agree that if there was a stationary Earth with a system moving around it, you could have a translation of motion down to that stationary Earth, and it would give you centrifugal and Coriolis effects.
Not without a medium to do that, and there is no medium. That's the point. There's
Okay,
no
so
medium
now we've
to do
boiled-
that, and the forces imparted, as said by Einstein, would not be strong enough.
Again, it's funny to me. So if you try to invoke a force like that that's translating all that, he won't have it. But they freely accept space-time, which is bending.
Yeah, yeah, and of course Einstein literally, like relativity, literally says it's interchangeable.
Yeah.
So one thing that, like, we just got into the ether here, because I think that ether plays a role in exchanging the force, right? Because there's ether there, it's obviously doing that, and there clearly is an ether. Let's be real. But in addition, it's like if the medium in quote unquote space is more dense, it would also do that, right? So Einstein's saying that, like, say if there's a vacuum of nothingness and they start super far away and it translates motion to the Earth like a centrifugal force, it would be barely detectable. But if it was a much more dense medium and all the stuff in the sky was much more local and moving over the Earth, then it would be a much stronger, more detectable force, right? So it's like the medium of space being not a vacuum and the ether medium, right? These two things are both relevant. But yeah, like you said, that he'll believe the space-time thing blindly, but he doesn't understand relativity is saying that it's interchangeable. Like force coming from outside the Earth or the force coming from the Earth is interchangeable in principle. Right. It's like
It's why
so stupid.
It's why Ellis says that he can construct a spherically symmetrical universe with the Earth at its center, and you can't disprove it based on observations, because observationally you can't tell the difference for sure.
Yeah,
So you're gonna have
exactly.
the
The
same
math
forces.
is actually interchangeable because the reference frames or the coordinate systems are basically like inverse of one another. It's so
right.
It's like, honestly, frankly, and I don't want to sound arrogant or anything like that, but like he just doesn't, like, this debate was just over his head. You know what I'm saying? Like he's just not understanding he's actually not understanding it. So
yeah,
it's crazy.
We'll continue a little bit more, I think, as get to your end.
Enough to match the forces that we have on Earth.
No, it wouldn't be strong enough without an additional medium. That's what he's saying. So then we boil the conversation down to, if there was a medium, then it would translate motion to the Earth with centrifugal and coils effects that could explain the phenomena observed on the Earth.
I mean, that's a claim if there was a medium.
So now our debate is whether or not there's a medium.
Well,
and that could be another hour-long debate, but I promise you wouldn't
what you
win
would
it.
need to do is give me a medium that transmits those forces and the mechanism via which it transmits. So you're making the assumption, in fact, you're the one that's begging the question here, because you are literally begging the question that there is a medium that explains everything that you have brought up. I never begged the question, not once. I used science and followed the scientific method that you learn in high school, the 5 points of the scientific method. I never begged.
Well, you are begging the question. You beg the question that there's nothing, basically, that in a vacuum chamber, it's Newtonian emptiness. And so you're begging the question that there is no medium. Now, I'm not begging the question because I'm not saying my point is true because the ether exists. How do I know? Well, the ether exists. I'm not doing that. I'm saying that in principle, this would explain the phenomena. And this is all to rebut your claim of exclusivity, right? Because you claim the only way that we could observe this on the Earth is if the Earth was moving. I've refuted that. In using your own hostile witness to do so, we boiled it down to if there's a medium or not. I can simply show you that there's free space impedance, there's a dielectric and magnetic constant, so dielectric permittivity and magnetic permeability in a vacuum chamber. It's well known. I can cite many sources within your own paradigm that admit that there is, in fact, some form of background energy that translates into the material world, and that it isn't only Newtonian emptiness. So all the evidence regarding the medium is actually on my side.
Yet no, it's really not. Space is a near perfect vacuum. Talking about vacuum energy and virtual particles and stuff is specifically not the aether. And I can give lots of citations for that to be the case. They are not one and the same thing. And that's not a medium by which forces can be mechanically transmitted from one place to another.
Let me read this quote then.
The creation of virtual particles is not able to transmit a physical force from one place to another.
So you just made the claim that you know that in the vacuum chamber there is no physical medium, but here is Saunders and H.R. Brown, The Philosophy of a Vacuum. Today, the vacuum is recognized as a rich physical medium. A general theory of the vacuum is thus a theory of everything, a universal theory. It would be appropriate to call the vacuum ether once again.
Yeah, but they're just using the word ether as a placeholder. It's not aether as in the luminiferous aether of old. They're not talking
Doesn't matter.
about the same thing. It does matter because it's not something that could transmit forces. There's virtual particles and things like that are not a mechanical means to transmit forces from one place to another. We only accept
He just said a
things that
physical
exist.
medium, Craig. You just said physical medium.
I said that it's not a physical. Sorry, when did I say? You made me lose my train
You're
of
saying
thought.
it isn't physical and that it
You have no
couldn't
idea what he's
translate motion,
talking
but he's
about.
saying
No,
it's a physical medium.
No, I'm saying that the creation of virtual particles and stuff is not the luminiferous aether, and it is also not a medium that could transmit forces like Coriolis from one place to another. There's no mechanism by which virtual particles or anything that are created within vacuum energy could do that.
I'm not claiming anything about virtual particles, my man. Like, I don't know why you're talking so assuredly about it, because admittedly, no one knows exactly what that is. It's just, to quote Richard Feynman, he said, that's not the input or output of any experiment. It's just a concept we came up with. Their existence are questionable at best. It's an abstraction to make
exactly.
the equations
I'm not making the claim that they definitely exist. I'm saying that the current theories around the creation of vertical particles from the rolling quantum wave of the universe, is what exists within vacuum space. That's a different theory. But
okay,
it's not. I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm just talking about what they talk about, what it is with regards.
Bear
to
with me one more
My
quote,
point is
dude.
that it's not a material medium, right? It's not
okay. You're saying
it's not
it can't
material medium that
translate
is able to
forces.
transmit force from one place
Right.
to another. There's no mechanism for that to happen.
Okay, let me read this. So this is actually Frank Wilczek, who is a professor of physics at MIT, Nobel Prize winner of 2004. Okay, and he specifically addresses what you just claimed. He says, there are good reasons to think that the universe is a multi-layered, multicolored superconductor, and that all four known forces can be brought together in a unified theory. That seemingly different kinds of matter are just different aspects of one all-embracing stuff. I anticipate that the next few years will be a new golden age in fundamental physics. So the evidence at the top level of particle physics actually is that there is something that translates force and motion within the background of a vacuum chamber.
Okay, that what you were quoting there, is that a published paper or is it just someone's opinion?
It's his book called The Lightness of Being, Mass, Ether, and the Unification of Forces, written September 2nd.
Right, so it's not a published peer-reviewed paper or anything like that. It's
This
just
is a Nobel Prize-winning physicist.
Yeah, okay, right. He's a nice appeal to authority there. He's a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, right? Who wrote an opinion piece in a book. That's it. That book isn't
Well, I don't know if it's
that
peer-reviewed or
book
not.
is not a peer-reviewed scientific article.
You're the one appealing to the authority of peer review. I'm not saying that because he won a Nobel Prize, what he's saying is true. What I'm saying is everyone knows that within quantum mechanics, there are a lot of things that show that energy, so it's currently thought of quantum field theory, and that there are excitations and perturbations within the field that encompasses all things that then manifest in the material world. And anyone will tell you that. Okay, so the point is that I can read another quote. We don't have to keep reading quotes, but the point is he says that they don't call it taboo, or they don't call it ether because it's taboo. All this comes down to the fact that you said you knew there was no medium, okay, and that you cannot make that claim.
I know there's no material medium. There is no material medium that transmit forces. That's it.
Well, it's immaterial, yeah. It's of course there's not a material medium in a vacuum chamber.
An immaterial medium cannot transmit a physical force from one place to another.
So you should go argue with all the top level physicists.
Sorry, go ahead. It has physical properties, but it's immaterial. He's like always about 10 steps behind it. That's why I'm like, people should listen to it, and you have to. And I will say I'm going real fast. I'm like, this hour is as much as I'm giving him, because it would have taken like 4 hours to break down each point in depth. But like, that's why I quoted the guy that says there's a physical medium. And obviously that would translate forces. Then I cite the guy that's explaining, and you can just look it up. It's based on actual evidence. It's called free space impedance in a vacuum chamber, right? It's like that there would be the cause of the forces, and that all the forces are actually coming from one source. So it is talking about forces and translation of motion and forces in a physical medium, right? It's just like he's literally not following. I will say this is a higher level. These are higher level points, right? Like subjects where they kind of require like some digestion, but he's definitely not digesting.
No.
In quantum that disagrees with you, I guess, because I'm not trying to. I don't have to argue with you about the medium.
Nobody says that a physical force can be transmitted without a medium.
They're saying there is a background medium. But so just to clarify for the audience, you concede, though, that if there was a background medium that could translate motion and forces, then we would be able to explain centrifugal effects on the Earth due to the Machian principle.
Yeah, but I suppose if there was magic unicorns farting gold, I'd be extremely rich. Doesn't mean that any of this has any validity with it.
Well, so you think that the vacuum chamber is just like emptiness?
It is a near perfect vacuum.
No, actually, right here it's up.
And within the confines of quantum mechanics, yes, we can talk about virtual particles and whatever else is coming within that. But a vacuum chamber is there's nothing inside. There is no medium. It is empty, apart from very few, molecules of air that are left over, because it's never going to be.
Well, that's not true. I can drop for you many links in the chat. There's something called the impedance of free space. It's 377 ohms, and there's a dielectric constant, an electric constant, and a magnetic constant, and even in a vacuum chamber. And here you go. One more quote. I know people are getting triggered, but about the time relativity was becoming accepted, studies of radioactivity began showing that an empty vacuum of space had spectroscopic structure similar to that of ordinary quantum solids and fluids. Subsequent studies with large particle accelerators have now led us to understand that space is more like a piece of window glass than ideal Newtonian emptiness. It is filled with stuff, quote unquote, that is normally transparent but can be made visible by hitting it sufficiently hard enough to knock out a part of it. The modern concept of the vacuum of space, confirmed every day by experiment, is a relativistic ether, but we do not call it this because it's taboo. Robert Laughlin, Nobel Prize, and he's from Stanford.
Yeah, again, was that
this is just
a paper or what was that from?
It's from a paper called A Different Universe.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to do a video on that because I actually read that paper.
Why? Okay, yeah. So anyway, I think we're going.
It's good. Oh, sorry, thank you.
Over, but I just want the point is that you can concede that if there was a background medium that could translate motion and forces, then if the sky was moving around a stationary Earth, that medium would translate the motion to the Earth, and we would be able to detect it with things like interferometers.
But could you concede that if the willpower of every sentient being in the universe was confined within a ring, I could use that ring and my imagination to create constructs?
That's not even remotely close to analogous to all the
you're just saying,
definite...
what if this, what if this, what if this, what if this?
That's what you're saying.
Who gives a fuck? No, yeah, well, I was saying it to mock you.
But you claimed that it was there was no way that it could happen unless the Earth was rotating. I proved you wrong, and you had to concede
you haven't proved me wrong. You are saying if this exists, then maybe that could be the reason. That's not proving me wrong. That's just going, oh well, maybe if possibly something maybe could be this. That is in no way proving me wrong.
You can.
Somebody saying something or no?
That was just me in the debate.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. Let me finish. Let me finish. Okay. That is in no way proving me wrong by saying if something possibly exists.
No, I'm saying that you can literally measure the impedance of free space is 377 ohms, and that inside a vacuum chamber, there is still an electric constant and a magnetic constant, which means electric permittivity and magnetic permeability, and there's energy coming from a background, even within a vacuum chamber, and this is well known. And so you can deny it if you want to. We can disagree on that. But this was all brought up simply to refute your claim that it would be impossible, and the only way it could be explained was the Earth moving. I refuted that claim sufficiently.
No, you have not refuted that claim sufficiently. You are just going, if this, then possibly that. There is nothing about the energy and the magnetism within empty free space that would be able to transmit physical forces in the method that you are claiming. It is just a claim with nothing to back it up. You have in no way at all refuted the measurements of the pendulum and the other measurements that I can bring up that show the Earth is rotating and a sphere.
So you guys have been going at it for a full hour now. I think that was all that we agreed to. You're more than welcome to continue to go forward if you want to both agree. If not, we can do like 5, maybe 3-minute closing statements, and then bring it to the audience here, who I'm sure have lots of questions for you guys.
Yeah, you can go ahead and close, bro.
You're welcome to do it first, if you like.
And we already heard what's its closing there. You want to hear any more of that?
Nah, you're good. The only part I do want everyone to get is like, so I was just talking about the ether specifically there as the medium, right? But again, like if the sky, just everyone like think about the concept. I only bring up Einstein because even relativity admits this concept has to be true, or they can't even put relativity forward. So it's an easy way to just like cut their knees off in a debate, right? But they say that space is a vacuum chamber, and there's like, I mean, the space is a vacuum, a near perfect vacuum at the stars, trillions of miles away, and all this nonsense, right? Well, like if we are in a stationary topographical plane Earth, and then there is like a medium outside of us, because we know there is something in the sky, right? So like if there's like a medium that's more dense or fluid-like, and then these stars and quote-unquote planets are much closer to the Earth, and they're moving around the over top of the Earth, that dense medium is going to translate motion down to our terrestrial environment. And then you're going to also have you could also have a background of the ether that would also be playing a role in that translation of motion. And that's why you would get much stronger translation of centrifugal forces on the Earth. And I think this is an important part. Like if we're going to try to come up with really figuring out what's going on the Earth, we need to, just start looking into some of this. In my opinion.
Yeah, totally. Do you have any comments, Zach or Hero?
Come on. Yeah, I do. You are a saint, Austin.
I know, you're so good.
I don't know.
Couldn't last 10 minutes.
I don't have the patience to talk to somebody like that.
Because he just doesn't want to learn. He's never going to, they can't even concede any point ever. Ever. It's a joke. You should come up with some
this
point.
quote I got in the chat for you.
Yeah, go ahead. It's going to be good. Go ahead.
Oh, the quote here. It's Mr. Sensible shared this with me recently. Is my favorite Albert Einstein quote ever. Okay. No amount of experimentation can ever prove me right. A single experiment can prove me wrong. That's from Albert Einstein. And that is exactly what someone who is very, very, very certain that they are wrong is going to say.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, there's so many things wrong. I mean, it's like, were all these things set up as purposeful deceptions? That's what I'm trying to think. Like the Foucault's pendulum is what I'm just thinking about in my head now. I guess I don't get how, if they say that there's inertia and that we have this conservation of momentum, I don't really understand why that wouldn't apply to the Foucault's pendulum as well.
Right, like this is one of the things I was saying to him, right? If they claim, so I say you don't have an independent frame of reference because the pendulum's on the Earth. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But they claim that the gimbal establishes the independent frame. And so like it really moves around in all directions, establishing an independent frame hanging there, whatever, right?
But
so if the pendulum's in an independent frame from the Earth, then the Earth is moving under the pendulum.
Right.
And the pendulum would move without you touching it.
Right. You would be able to just put a little piece of ink at the end of it and leave it alone, and it would start to draw lines.
Well, yeah. So like it wouldn't move as much in the plane. So, you push it in a plane, and then they say the Earth's spinning underneath it, and that causes it to move in that plane differently. But it would move like left and right, right? Like it wouldn't stay still. Of course, in real life, if you just leave the pendulum there, it'll stay there forever. And the reason it does that is because it is attached to the Earth, and the Earth is a stationary frame of reference. You know what I'm saying? So of course it doesn't move because the Earth's not moving. Now, if you move it, it's going to detect that slight movement over top of the Earth. In my opinion, that's what's happening. But I've never heard them actually rebut that. They double speak by saying, and I watched DFE's like, PhD says so. Let me guess you know more than him or whatever, right? But like they can't address the principle. You're claiming it establishes an independent frame of reference from the Earth by using the gimbal, which means it's in a frame independent of the Earth, if that was true. So therefore, if the Earth is moving and it's not moving with the Earth because it's in an independent frame, then it would move by itself. They've never rebutted that. I think that's the easiest way to destroy the pendulum, personally.
Well, we went 3 hours anyway, almost. Let me see if there's anything else that we wanted to talk about today. Thank everybody who came to the summit. We had a great time. Ira, did you enjoy yourself?
Yeah, quite a lot. I feel nice, comfortable.
Nice. Have people enjoyed your...
beside my English thing, but I think I did a decent job trying to explain from my field of visual effects artist. But it was a really great summit in general. So congratulations, guys, because it's not easy to arrange and order and put everything together. So
Oh, it's kind of a nightmare.
I can imagine.
We made some mistakes that we will fix next time. So we'll let everybody know that we are having another one March 17th and 18th, 2023. So if you want to mark that on your calendars now, basically the same as it was. We're going to try and get some different speakers and even make it better. So any comments on that, Austin?
No, I think it's going to be awesome. We're going to have some new speakers, and yeah, I'm not just saying this because we throw it or whatever. Like, I actually think it's an awesome, like, crucial thing for Flat Earth, where you see what I have to go through with these people, and I think it's necessary or whatever. But we just getting together, like us getting together and like building off of like true info and like sharing knowledge and how to keep progressing and moving forward together is like a very crucial thing to kind of keep us sane, keep us like grounded and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it did accomplish that. I think it's super cool. And,
I got quite a
I'm
few
looking
emails
forward.
from people that said that they can't watch our stuff even every week, right? So meaning like sometimes I think to myself, oh man, I do a 3-hour show. I bet people don't have 3 hours a day to watch me. But really there's people out there who don't even have an hour a week to watch, right? So something like this, what they said helps them immensely because they don't have any time throughout the week, throughout the months. So if we do something like this, it's kind of a chance for them to get caught up on where each person is or what different lines of inquiry at the time, what's been found out, what's other people. So I think that's a great reason for it too.
Yeah, for sure. And then like it's like a variety of topics and stuff, so it's cool. It's yeah, dude, I think it's a great thing.
You get your health stuff, you get your earth stuff. So yeah. So yeah, March 17th, 18th. And Zach, what do you have coming up this week? What's going on? We're trying to end a little bit early because Austin has his patron stream. Patron stream tonight. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just be over on Iron Realm Media for Ironworks Tuesday and Friday morning, 5 a.m. Eastern, real early. More of a, we get some early birds from the East Coast, some night owls from the West Coast, but a lot of overseas people from Europe. But yeah, it's fun. But that's about it. I'm working on a video. I'm just having trouble writing it. It's called There Are No Negatives in Nature. I'm on the gas pressure part. And yeah, I just want to word it so everybody can get what I'm saying.
Gotcha. That's important.
Yeah. Okay. But no, that's about it.
Eru, how about you? What do you have coming up?
Well, I am on Rockfin. I'm just uploading a new info based on the Ascension series, which for me it's a really nice product. How you say predictive programming. I don't know if you saw the series. I have taken some advantage of Rockfin that they allow to upload a few old stuff, but in YouTube will be impossible. Of course, I only upload those type of things in terms of movie or documentaries that I really believe that is something that you can take as an education info, not just for fun. And it has a really nice script behind because it's something about like you can create a spaceship and make believe the people that you are in space travel to other world, and in the meantime there is a lot of things with vaccines and eugenics, etc. And also I am working on MPT for all in YouTube, so if you want to take out my lasted info, is already there. And of course, in terms of the Spanish, I'm really busy with my webpage and all the stuff that we do for the Spanish community, which take me quite a lot, full week. So I'm trying to divide the waters.
Nice. Yeah, maybe we're trying to think of a way to have the summit translated next time. So we'll have to talk to you about that. See if you know anybody who does that kind of work.
You say that I can give in. You say the summit, the English share with the Spanish people.
Yeah, we were trying to think of next time if there's a way to get it translated so it would be in Spanish.
In real time, you say.
Yeah, that or even shortly after.
I would love
okay.
real
No.
time, so they could
Oh.
actually have the real like experience where it's like they get to watch the whole thing. I mean,
Well,
I'm sure
that
it's kind of difficult, but
Yeah, no, I don't know if it's difficult. I don't really know the how how you need to pay to a professional to do that at the ESPN sports style. When I
Right.
see, for example, from here, from Spanish community, we see some NFL sport, and you have a guy translating over. I don't know exactly how can be charged for that, but that will be a
Can
really
you
nice
can
experience
you ask
because
around?
there is a lot of people.
Can you ask?
yeah, you'd be able to reach your whole audience would maybe get to instead of being left
Yeah,
out.
no, of course,
Yeah.
exactly. We can share, we can share space in terms of the bring people from the Spanish community, which is
Oh, go
millions
vice versa, yeah,
of
too.
them.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
you would probably be like exclusively the person bringing them, and so then it would also help you out a lot, right? They would all use your little code.
I going to ask him in a few groups that I have, because I work with professionals translators, but they do the work after, but they maybe know people in their work that they maybe do that type of work. So I'm gonna ask. You don't lose anything for ask. So it's a nice idea.
Awesome.
So yeah, we think that'd be good. And to everybody that attended, all the summit attendees, your virtual goodie bags have gone out, and I can see that only like 54% have opened that email. But if you have not seen it yet, go to your email and check spam and everywhere else, and it should be there. If you still don't have it, reach out to me, either Telegram t.me/Jeranism, or you can go to the store by going to Thames.live and then go to the store and then open up a ticket through the contact link. And I think that's it as far as that goes. And what do you have coming up, Austin? You be busy?
Yeah, so I have the Patreon only stream tonight. I pushed it back, so it's like 9 p.m. Eastern. So if you're a patron, just go to patreon.com or your app, and you'll see the post. I dropped the link to the thing. It'll just be a little Patreon only stream. And a lot of people were telling me I should get off Patreon though and try something else. I forgot what it's called. Like I don't remember. But they're scared I'm going to get
or something.
What'd you say?
Subscribe Star. I've heard that before. Yeah, I mean, I got my account frozen twice, and both times I thought it was gone. So then I just made the decision to move everything to crypto. So I don't do anything, put crypto there now, because and both times they froze my account, they did give it back. But because these same guys that you debate, they go around and they complain and they send emails and they get so upset. That's
right. Well,
that's
that's why my Discord got deleted.
Right.
It was like these anti-flat earthers, they'll like get destroyed in a debate or something on Discord, and then they just go report, and then got my account and my server deleted on Discord. So,
yeah.
But as of now,
man.
I'm doing Patreon.
Donald Trump has back the Twitter account, and you have been deleted on Discord. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. And of
I'm
course,
deleted from
they
Twitter.
won't put Alex Jones back on Twitter. So if you want to know how free speech Elon is, just wait till you see if Alex Jones gets on there. Obviously, it's all a show. But I mean, then I don't know what else I have. I think I have another debate supposed to be coming up with the Crucible. I don't know if DFB is still trying to debate me. I think I may debate him again. A lot of people want to see that. Maybe I should make him just debate me about relativity. But anyway, then trying to work out the whole thing with the Professor Dave debate. And then I will be, of course, streaming this week at least like 5 times, I think. So that is what I got coming up.
Just reading, people are all upset I had Fight the Fast shirt on the screen. So he says, please remove Fat Boy from the screen. That's funny. Yeah, so anyway, that's what you have coming up. Yeah, also, I don't know. I wish that we had some sort of I'll think of something. Think of something in my head. Because I think it could be much better spent doing work on what you need to do and not so much stuff that, well, I'll talk about it next week. It's in my head. I'm working it out. Anyway. Hey, GLOBEBUSTERS, you should do a members option here. Yeah, we should turn it on. I mean, the reason that Bob didn't is after a while, I only had I think I still have less than 30. I think it is. So I don't think that Bob was like, oh, you don't think people will sign up for it? It's just kind of weird because we have Rockfin. So it's kind of hard to say, oh, be a Rockfin or be a member. How do you reward one without punishing the other? So we just didn't do it. But
I'll talk to him about it. Maybe it's something we can turn on. Anybody else? Any final words before we head out?
The
Kyle,
Utah
what you got?
Flat
It's
Earth
flat.
meet and
Oh,
greet
Kyle, I
is
forgot
coming
about
up.
you. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah. So the Utah Flat Earth meet and greet is coming up on December 10th. And it's like the biggest meet and greet Utah does of the year. And it's going to be held out in Draper. Last year I went there with Taboo Conspiracy. It was fantastic. Absolutely loved it. Doing like a potluck and chili cook-off, and yeah, really fun stuff.
All right.
Nice.
All right, and for me, just same old thing. I've got Dr. Susan on Wednesday coming back for another installment of her decoding the fairy tale series, and then we've got Speaker's Corner on Thursday, Journalism Show Friday, and then back to everything again on Saturday. So I think that's it. I'm gonna let everybody see if there's any comments, anything I'm missing. Nope. All right, guys. Be kind to each other. Don't lie to each other, and open your mind. There is truth inside. Till next week, we'll talk to you guys.